Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast. And now, here's the guy who's about to dip into the rank bank once again. Rob Cesternino, hello everybody, and welcome to such a huge night here on RHAP. We are about to reveal the results of what happened when my poll was up for 2 straight weeks. That's right. We are going to find out who you voted for as the top 20 Survivor players of all time, the top 20 greatest, best players of the game of Survivor. We are going to find out that and much, much more tonight on what should be an epic, epic episode of Rob Has a Podcast. First, let's introduce you to the guys that are going to be here with us tonight. First, he is the man who has been going through all of the ballots with a fine-tooth comb, throwing out anything that was fishy or not, or basically anybody that's trying to beat the system. You cannot do it. Here he is, the tabulator, Curt Clark.
Hey there. How's it going?
It's going great, Curt. How are you?
Doing good. Although I've been using the term wonky because I don't want to cast aspersions on the fishy. I mean, that's already a great thing, we know, the fishies. So I've been casting aside the wonky ballots.
Yes, fair enough. And here with us, way back in 2011, he was the man who originally went through the ballots, the 538 ballots that were cast in 2011 in the original RHAP Top 20 Survivor Players of All Time, and he joins us once again back here tonight, 3 years later. Here he is. He's Mr. Kaz Kozdrowski.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Glad to be back and ready to roast everyone who's on this new list, just like I did on the old one, but should be a great time.
Yes, very fun night. I actually had a chance yesterday to listen to the top 20 Survivor players list of all time from 2011, and it was so funny on a couple of different levels that, you know, basically we felt like this was we have the list here. We had 538 ballots, and we've polled all these people, and this is the definitive list. Fast forward now. We have way more ballots that we're going to talk about that in a moment. We have 6 new seasons that we've added to the list, and this is probably, and correct me if I'm wrong here, this is the biggest thing like this that's ever been attempted before since like Survivor All-Stars or anything like that. Am I talking out of school, Curt?
No, I think definitely in terms of the amount of ranking that we had going on, I think the next biggest thing that we've attempted here on RHAP has been the Big Brother Top 14, but, you know, the Survivor, and it needs a Top 20.
Okay, good, yes. And what we then did in 2012, we did the Big Brother Top 14 players of all time to get ready for Big Brother 14. Next summer, I will announce it here officially. We will update. It's like every 3 years we're on a cycle. We will update the top 17 Big Brother players of all time next summer. So that is coming to RHAP in 2015. It'll be 3 years, and we'll update the top 17 Big Brother players of all time. There you go.
Do you think you can find 17 good Big Brother players? Because I'm not optimistic.
It'll be tough. Maybe we'll get 3 more this season.
Do we need to dip into Canada for that?
That could Curt. That could be. We could mix the U.S. and but that might get messy.
Oh, you know I'm gonna push for from Toya from the UK to make that list if we do this.
Don't even bring up Big Brother UK people, Curt. We got too much to do here tonight. Anyway, just touching on Big Brother real quick. 24 hours from now, Big Brother 16 is going to premiere here in the U.S. So we are very pumped up about that. Be sure to join us live. I'll be live with Brian Lynch tomorrow night, 9:15 p.m. Eastern, for our extensive coverage of Night 1 of the Big Brother 16 premiere, and it's a 2-night special. So we will also be live at 10:15 p.m. Eastern on Thursday after the second night of Big Brother. And of course, there's still time to get in on the early bird special on the Big Brother live feeds. You can check out how you can win $500 watching Big Brother live feeds this summer by going to robhasawebsite.com/bingo. It's going to be the biggest year yet for Big Brother live feed bingo. But first, we have the task at hand. It's like Christmas Eve. It's the night before Big Brother. It's one last night to talk some Survivor before Big Brother really starts to percolate. So let's talk about a little bit of what we did here, Curt. Can you take us through the your totals of the number of votes that came in for the Survivor Top 20 Players of All Time poll?
Sure. I'll start by saying that we have nearly 6,700 quote-unquote valid ballots. I won't get into the technicalities about how those are processed. It involves a lot of looking at IP addresses and pattern recognition and sorting. There was a lot of people coming in from the same device and people who were definitely trying to stack the deck. Long story short, though, just like every other single poll that we've done on here, the results prior to the cleaning and after the cleaning did not change. So once again, people put an undue amount of effort into trying to stack the deck, and it ended up having no results, and it just made my life harder. So please, next time, just stop. But it's about 6,700 results. I don't think there was a single survivor who did not get at least one vote.
Really?
Yeah. Which tells you the way that some people were voting, trying to kind of stack the deck in favor of their particular players. But yeah, all across the board, we had people getting at least one vote, if not a couple. And so as we go through the results and you hear the numbers spoken, keep in mind a first place result was worth 10 points, all the way down to a 10th place vote equaling 1 point. So if somebody, let's say, got 1,000 votes, then that was the equivalent of about 100 first place votes. So as we kind of go through the results and we talk about the numbers, you'll be able to gauge how many first place votes were between this player and that player.
All right, so 6,700 ballots. I think you buried the lead a little bit there, Curt. So this is basically we had, I can't do the math here on the fly, but at least over 12 times as many votes cast for this one as we did in 2011.
Yeah, that's about right. And sorry, I didn't mean to bury the lead. I know that we had over 10,000 votes for for the RHAP favorite player of the season. But keep in mind, this is also something that people spent a lot more time with. This was something that they had to actually sit down and think about it. And so I think you might have had, I think that's why we had like a few fewer votes for that. But yeah, compared to 2011, we've, exponentially increased.
Okay, good. Yeah, it was a little bit of a controversy that people said, hey, it's a top 20 poll. Why don't I get to vote for 20 people? But even though that would have been, maybe gave us a deeper list of maybe, that we would have had very accurate top 100 or 150 doing that, the cleanup would have been probably a lot messier. And then also, I think that we would have also inhibited some people who weren't going to be able to name their top 20. So I felt like exactly. 10 was a good sort of like meet in the middle with that.
Yeah, it was trying to strike a nice balance between getting enough variation, and when we eventually talk about the top 20 and people who didn't quite make it in and where people placed, you'll see that it's actually probably a little bit deeper than you might expect. I think there's a lot of interesting. You could have easily done a top 25 and then a top 50 out of this if we had wanted to. But yeah, striking a balance between enough variation as well as not putting kind of undue burden on people who just wanted to kind of get in and vote, not spend an hour doing it.
And then a little more disclosure about what we've done here. So Curt and Kaz know the results of the top 20 and the top, how many survivors do we have at this point, Curt?
Oh, gosh. I think it was like 400 something. Do you have the number there, Kaz?
I think it's 424. At least that's how many we got votes for.
Yeah.
And I think everybody got one.
Okay, 424. So the all top 424. These guys know the results. I do not. I don't ever want to know the results of the poll. I like to be in the dark about my polls, and then I will reveal it, and then it's a big surprise. So I am very excited.
Yeah, we're the only ones who've seen your poll in the last 2 weeks.
And I've had to keep it up for 2 weeks, so that's been a chore.
Oh my God. So, all right. If you want to hear the 2011 version of this podcast, if you haven't heard it yet, if you're a new listener, we've added a lot of people to Rob Has a Planet in the last 3 years. You can go to that at robhasawebsite.com/OHP OG Top 20. And you can also see on both the show page and on that podcast page from 2011 the full list of the 2011 list. I actually have that printed out here for reference if I want to take a look back at the top 100 from 2011. So that's one of the things I'm going to be keeping an eye on tonight as we sort of see who jumped up in the rankings, who fell in the rankings, and then, of course, we have all this new blood as well. So it's going to be very, very fun. Now, I know you guys have a little bit of a couple things planned before we get to number 20.
Yeah, I think we played a couple games last time, and it may have gone a little long, so we can try to shorten it up a little bit. But we were going to give you a few names of some interesting characters who were not anywhere near the top 20, and we were going to see if you thought these people were in the top 100 or outside of it.
Okay, fun. Let's fire away.
Well, let's start with a doozy then, because the first person on the list is Jatia.
Oh, Jatia. Okay.
So do you think Jatia is in the top 100 on this list?
Okay, Jatia, inside the top 100 or outside the 100? I'm going to say recency bias. I'll say Jatia is probably inside the top 100.
And you would absolutely be correct. Jatia coming in 68th place.
Whoa, so many nerds must be voting for the top 100. Oh, my God.
Or people who just absolutely hate rice. I think that would also be there.
Chase Rice?
No. I think everybody hates Chase Rice.
No, people love him. Let's get weird.
Let's get weird, absolutely. Well, speaking of weirdos, another name on the list that I think you'll enjoy, John Fincher. Do you think John Fincher cracked the top 100?
Boy, it's not the top 100 posers of all time, right?
No, he'd clearly be number one on that list.
I would say that John Fincher, I'll say outside the top 20, the top 100.
Definitely outside the top 20, and also pretty far outside the top 100, actually, coming in 193rd place.
What? That's me channeling John Fincher.
I think that might have been his ranking for best roaster as well.
Oh, no.
Sorry, John.
Oh, no.
And then let's go with one other fun one. Somebody that you love and we all hate. Nayanka Mixon. Is she in the top 100?
Well, it is well known, well documented, my love of Nayanka. I would say that, well, in the last top 100 poll we did, wasn't Nayanka, yeah, I have Nayanka at 102 back in 2011, and that was only about 8 or 9 months after she had finished on Survivor Nicaragua. So I will say that Nayanka probably slipped from 2011 to 2014.
And that would be a very reasonable guess. It's also wrong.
Oh, no.
Nayanka has climbed the ranks all the way up to number 99 this year.
I wonder, though, if, I feel like that with stuff like this, I wonder if that people really voted for their favorites and then tried to stack the bottom of their ballot with people that they knew would not have a chance. And because I don't think that many people would be voting for Nayanka as one of the top 10 best players. But let's say they had these are my top 5, and I don't want anybody else coming close to them. Maybe there was some strategy there from the voters.
And then they all kind of decide collectively to vote for Nayanka because of her reputation,
right?
And that ends up boosting her up the list.
That ends up pushing Nayanka up. So I think that probably there's probably a point of demarcation where we say, okay, well now these are the actual number of people, these are where we could say probably around 50 or 60 or whatever, that where the ballots stop being for good people and start being for notorious people who are not good players that people voted for because they went to in their head, okay, who else is nobody going to vote for good players?
And to that point, I know on the video you put together for the YouTube channel, you kind of instructed people to vote for the best strategist, but even looking through some of the ballots, you did get to see that there were some people who were very obviously stacking the deck in terms of these are the most beautiful survivors. Ooh. So I think so there were some ballots, just as you kind of went through them individually, where you could see that the rationale was very much, okay, putting, like you said, putting these people in the top 3 and then putting people no one had heard of in the bottom 7. And that was done, I think, across the board. That didn't really weight towards one particular survivor. So I think that ends up evening out in the end. But at the same time, you could see some polls that were definitely up because they were ranking the most beautiful or the most TV-friendly survivors.
Now, Curt, I know there was a comment box, and you had basically been collecting all the comments from the voters as they cast their ballots. Is there anything that you learned from the people who shared comments with you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we'll see, and I pulled kind of some key comments for each of the top 20. So as we go through there, you started to see definite trends as to why people potentially placed where they did, or why fans of a particular player voted them higher than you might think that somebody would have. So we'll get to those as we go through the results, and obviously we can jump in as other players' names come up. We can even do a quick search and see what pops. So,
okay, Kaz, any more foreplay for me?
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple quick notables I can give you real fast. The person you called the worst Survivor player of all time, Wendy Jo, coming in 281st place, which means she beat out about 140 people. So some people seem to disagree that she's the worst person of all, or worst player of all time.
Yeah, you know what? It's probably like if you're one of these people that's like, okay, well this is my top 3 or whatever, and I'm just gonna pick all people that stink for the other 5 ballots, 7 ballots for casting your vote if you don't want to fill out a top 10. I think that the people who probably got voted off first, I would imagine, probably did better than the people who got voted off second. Because I feel like the people who get voted off first, you sort of like, if you're a really great Survivor fan, you could probably recall all the people that got voted off first. I think it's almost harder to come up with all the people that got voted off second. And I think that some of the second and third boots are more forgettable than the first boots.
And to that point, somebody obviously did remember Francesca, who got voted out not once but twice in the first spot. She came in 111th place. So I think that speaks towards your point.
All right, good job, Franny. How about that?
And then I have to make one quick apology, because when we did this list originally, we played a little game called the Matthew von Ertfelder game, and Matthew finished 62nd on that list. And I thought, he's only going up from here. This has increased his popularity. He's on RHAP season. He's going way up. He fell 110 spots in this poll this year.
Boy. Well, that's tough for Matthew von Ertfelder, too. So where did he end up, 172?
171.
171. Okay.
Still in the top half, but I think maybe 3 years down the road, he's trending towards the bottom, unfortunately.
Trending down. He's got to try to reverse that. Okay.
Unfortunately so.
And to that point, Rob, I think as we kind of look at some of the numbers here, you'll see in the top 20, even as you get down to like 30 and 40, there's a sizable gap in the points for most of the rankings. But when you get down to like 150, 222, sometimes there's a whole slew of people who got 43 points, and then the next ranking is 44 points. So I'd say with this poll, you do have a little bit of a margin of error. I'm not going to say it's plus or minus 20 points or whatever, but there are ones that are kind of within spitting distance of each other that should at least be considered contemporaries.
Duly noted, and we will release the entire rankings. If not this tonight, then sometime soon.
Okay.
We just have to get it in a format that's friendly for the website. Okay. All right. So are you guys ready? Are we really ready to do this?
I think we're there.
Let's do this.
All right, so the great Scott St. Pierre has gone through and helped us out. We have some infographics here tonight to sort of paint the picture of what we're about to see. So have you guys seen this this PowerPoint here? So do we know what is the next slide going to immediately be number 20?
I believe that if it's the version I saw, that it starts out with the number at the top, and then as we reveal the name, so for instance, like right now, it's listed as number 20. We'll reveal the name, and then the picture will come up.
Okay, good. All right, so you guys take it away how you want to present the top 20. Here we go. Stephen Royal in the chat room says top 20, baby. By the way, also you can get your questions and comments into the show. We are live here doing this on just for historical purposes. Today is Tuesday, June 24th, 2014. We've got the chat room open. I am following the chat room as we go along here. If you're saying stuff in the chat room, I am seeing it. We've also got our hashtag open on Twitter, hashtag RHAP. I have my personal Twitter open, @Rob Cesternino. And you can also comment on the YouTube video itself. on our YouTube channel at robhasawebsite.com/YouTube. If you're enjoying this video live, we always appreciate it, or in the archives, if you leave us some comments and like and favorite the video. All right. So you guys are in the driver's seat. I'm sitting bitch in the back. So you guys take us wherever we're going. Very excited tonight for the top 20 players of all time, baby.
Yep. And so we might as well hop it right in with number 20. So at number 20, with just over 4,700 votes, we have one of our many winners. You're going to see a lot of winners in the top 20. Shouldn't be very much of a surprise to anybody. And rather than continue with the foreplay, we'll jump right in. Number 20, winner of season 9, Chris Daugherty.
Oh, Chris Daugherty here, number 20. And I gotta say, we'll give you our color commentary and all this, but I gotta say my gut reaction here is that feels low for Chris. And by low, I mean that a lot of people consider him to be one of the underrated, but still one of the really, I guess that's part of being an underrated winner, right?
Yeah, I think you had a lot of people who at least gave him the nod that he deserved. And I'll go as we kind of talk a little bit more about it, and I'll reveal some of the comments. But it seemed that it was that at least he got votes from those who voted him highly because he was seen as overcoming the worst odds with arguably the least diverse skill set, and did so without the protection of an idol. I mean, I'm quoting from some of the comments here.
Yeah. Oh my God. And those were the reasons why he was low, or why people voted for him.
Why people voted for him.
Yeah.
Some of these people, obviously placed him in first, but not enough people necessarily did. But as I read the comments, sometimes you'll see these are people who did place him highly. It just wasn't highly enough amongst enough people to get him further up in the ranking.
Kaz, what's your take on Chris? Is Chris truly underrated, or is he so underrated that people are overrating him?
Yeah, so I was listening back to the show we did 3 years ago, and I had him at number 10 on my list. And when I listened back, I said, that can't be right. And I started putting my list together, and I realized Chris is one of those guys who everybody says, oh, they're underrated, but I'm not seeing it. And I think he actually is someone who has now become overrated because of the cult popularity he's received. So I don't think I'd put him in my top 20. I think he's maybe a little outside of it. I kind of soured on him actually after listening to him on your podcast a couple of years ago. Nothing that you did, but I think he didn't really come across as someone who I felt like was a true strategist, and might have gotten a little lucky. So I actually think this is a little high for him.
I know Chris has a lot of popularity. Mario Lanza is always talking about Chris is a really great winner. Chris, in our 2011 poll, was in 13th place. So he actually slips 7 spots between 2011 and 2014. So I think that's very interesting to see which way he's trending. Also, there's a couple things that, like, is he trending that way because more time has passed, or is he trending that way because more and more people in the public voted? So I think that's a sort of an interesting subplot to follow as we go through the top 20.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting comments about Chris's ranking, or why people voted for him, Chris Daugherty's win is a textbook example of how to win Survivor: lay low, lie your ass off, and win at the right time.
Yeah. Now, the original Top 20 podcast that we did back in 2011 was recorded, and we didn't have the ability to be able to take your comment and get your commentary along the way. Luckily, in 2014, we do. In 2017, when we do the Top 20 Survivor poll once again, who knows, we'll be able to have all of the survivors on hologram, being able to talk to them live. Let's take a comment from you guys. From Collins, the great Colin Stone says, Chris Daugherty is in at number 20, and it's a pleasant surprise. So there you go, a man who knows his survivor.
Obviously not well enough, though. I disagree.
Okay. So Chris Daugherty in at number 20. So I saw a question in the chat room, and this was something that we talked about in 2011. We talked about the worst winner of all time according to the rankings. And do you guys, am I taking you guys off your game if we talk about that for a moment?
No, in fact, Curt and I were talking about this today, and we thought it was one person, and then we realized there was a name lower on the list. So when we did this 3 years ago, I think you probably have there who the bottom 3 winners were, correct?
Yes, I have in my notes from back in this was a segment that we did back in 2011. We talked about the worst 3 winners, and they were at number 47 was Fabio, and they were all back to back. It was very odd. So at number 47 was Fabio, at number 48 was Vesepia, and in 2011 the voters voted that the number 49 best player of all time, but the worst winner was Amber Mariano.
And I can tell you that actually has changed, and we have a new worst winner this year.
New worst winner. Oh my! And by the way, I said it on a podcast the other day, but let me say it once again. Congratulations to Rob and Amber on the birth of their 4th child this week. Yeah, very, very, very exciting news. Rob had tweeted some pictures of all the girls, and everybody is looks happy and healthy. So once again, congratulations to Rob and Amber on their latest baby.
And I think that's strategic timing on Boston and Rob's part to get Amber bumped up on this list, and it worked because she's actually not even in the bottom 3 winners anymore.
Okay, well, very interesting. All right, so please tell us, who is the new worst winner of all time?
The worst winner of all time, coming in 58th place from Survivor Samoa, Natalie White.
Natalie White actually falling. So where was Natalie White in 2011?
I think she was in the low 40s, somewhere
44.
around there.
Yeah.
So dropped a little bit, and all the other winners have surpassed her, so she is now the bottom winner on the list.
Okay. All right. Number 44, Natalie White, who has her supporters as well.
Not very many anymore, apparently.
Not very many. And what is her rank overall?
58.
58. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. All right. Are you guys ready to go to number 19?
Sure. Yes, and so number 19, I don't know how this worked out, Curt, but somehow we decided he's going to do the evens, I'm going to do the odds, and this could not have worked any better because coming in at number 19, 3-time player and obviously the favorite in my heart, Amanda Kimmel.
Oh boy! All right, so we know that Kaz is a big fan of the Amanda Kimmel. If you were listening from 2011 or from the original Miss Survivor, we know that Kaz loves Amanda Kimmel and is her #1 supporter. So congratulations to Amanda Kimmel, who, according to my notes, also drops from 2011, where she was in 17th place. So a little bit of a fall from grace, down 2 notches to number 19 overall. So how about this, Kaz? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I at least am happy that she's fallen 2 spots, so that means 3 years from now she'll hopefully not be in the top 20 anymore. My opinion has not changed in the last 3 years. I still think she twice could have won her first 2 games. Both times she screwed it up and took the wrong side. She could be 2-0. Instead, she's 0-3. I still don't like her.
No, yes, Curt.
And there's, looking at the comments, there's kind of actually a common theme for those who are high on Amanda, really comparing her to Russell and kind of in terms of getting to the end in a very similar way, possibly performing better, but not getting the same amount of discussion as Russell is about the game being flawed. I mean, we have one comment about, if Russell Hantz will forever be debated if he's one of the best, then why is Amanda ignored? They both juried back-to-back, except Amanda got votes, and she didn't use idols to get there. She was the only hero in Heroes versus Villains that put up a proper fight and was a threat. So some really good points there in terms of parallels between their game, but she's not debated about why she didn't potentially win.
And I'll point out she did actually use an idol to get there. She would have been out in 6th place in Micronesia without an idol. So
that is true. That is true. There were some. Good for catching that. There were some factual things that I did have to correct throughout. Forgot that. And that was one of the better tribal councils, too. Some great acting on Amanda's part in basically getting people to believe that she didn't have the idol.
Curt, I know my Amanda hating facts.
Yes, he knows this. Kaz knows all his talking points. Just following along what you guys are saying, Dr. Kush says Amanda is terrible. WTF is going on here. But KB says 2 finals, including 1 Final 2 and a mid-game finish. So some people are, upset that Amanda's not higher. Others feel like that she doesn't belong on the list. So obviously, Rob Has a Planet is very split on Amanda Kimmel.
Exactly, and I think that's, one of the interesting things about the people voting. I think one of the great reasons why, I'm glad people were able to share why it is that they were voted the way they did, because there was this common theme again about she got to the end twice, she got more votes than Russell. She wasn't as much, at least, of an idle hog as Russell, but she still got there.
All right. Dylan Robinson says that Amanda was great, but she was crappy when it came to Final Tribal. And I guess that it really depends on how you look at a survivor. If somebody is, really great in one area of the game, and I feel like that Amanda, where she really, one of the best parts of her game is she's very good in the challenges as well. So I do think that she is a very threatening player, where she is able to, she is pretty well liked by her fellow players. She's really good in the challenges. She can win immunities in a pinch, but she's not somebody who's good in that final tribal council. So how much should that hurt her overall as a player?
Well, she didn't rise higher than 19th in this case, and I think I think with Amanda, and feel free to disagree here, Kaz, she has a little problem when it comes to using her words, both in the jury speeches, in having to lie within the game. She did a really good job given in fans versus favorites, but I go back to heroes versus villains, where she had to basically lie to Parvati about kind of what the plans were, and Parvati saw completely through it. So I think there's just some inconsistency in terms of her being able to pull off what she needs to say at the right time.
Now, it was a fun thing that we did in the 2011 version. We did a little bit of like a buy or sell at the current stock price for these people. So I know what Kaz is going to say. At 19 overall, Curt, would you buy the Amanda Kimmel stock, as in it's undervalued at 19, or would you sell at 19 in that you think that she is lucky to be there, and if somebody would pay you 19th place for Amanda Kimmel, you would be making a profit for what you think she's actually worth?
Unless I was hearing rumors that she was going to be back for another season, sell.
Sell? Boy.
Yeah.
He's a smart man.
I think that's probably about right for Amanda Kimmel. I think that's probably... I think I'd hold on Amanda Kimmel there.
But if she was rumored to come back for a second returning players Blood versus Water, I think we would see her probably... I would predict ahead of time that she would rise in the rankings. Yeah. Both in terms of past experience and recency bias.
Big Brother winner Ian Terry, following along on Twitter, said, did the voters somehow believe this was a nice eyes contest? Amanda being at 19 is yike. Okay, there you go from Ian Terry.
Another very smart man. See, I think certain pieces of Rob Has a Planet may be a little higher on Amanda than they should be. One thing I will say, though, I think she could have won both games. I really do. And if she ever comes back, and I actually think she probably will, she could win if she had that killer instinct, but I think that's missing, and I think that's her biggest hole, even more than the final tribal council stuff.
Is that something that can be learned, the killer instinct? I talked about this in my podcast with Cass about the social game, and I don't think you could learn the social game. Could you learn the killer instinct? I feel like you can. I don't know if she can, but I feel like it can be learned.
I think people can learn it.
Yeah,
I don't think she can. I think a good example of that is when she's wrestling with Double D over the clue, and she just kind of gives up for no reason. I don't think she has that in her to be that true fighter who's going for it at all points.
Okay. All right. Are you guys ready? Should we take? Let me take one more question. We'll go to number 18. Amazing Race Know-It-All says, number 19. I think Amanda made a good alliance in her first 2 seasons, but the third was she wasn't ruthless enough, and she didn't express that passion throughout the game to win, and stung herself along with her allies. Okay. So you sort of that's the story on Amanda Kimmel. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so there's Amanda Kimmel at number 19 overall in the top 20 players of all time, Paul. All right. Should we talk about number 18?
Sure. Number 18, going to serve this one up in a slightly different way. A 2-time player. One comment about this player. This player played... The game this player played was immaculate, probably the best ever from a first-time competitor. He made an alliance early and held it by the jugular for the entire game. Dominant, aggressive, in control. We're talking about Tom Westman.
Oh, Tom Westman at number 18 overall. And I got to say, my gut reaction on this, I feel even more strong than I did with Chris, This feels low to me, Sir, Tom Westman at number 18. What's your take on this, Kaz?
I like Tom, and I actually had him at exactly number 18 on my list, so I think this is a perfect spot. I guess I would buy it if I had to choose one or the other. But I think Tom's a really good player. I think he's one of those guys who's not the most strategic person in the world, but he's smart. He's obviously great in challenges. People like him. I think he's, kind of the kind of guy who's just naturally crafted for Survivor. And, if he can make it through the first vote or two after the merge, he's going to run it most of the time. So I actually think this is right around where he should be, and I think he's a really strong player.
I don't know, Curt, what precipitated an Ertfelda-esque fall for Tom Westman? He was at number 9 in the 2011 list. He drops 9 spots to 18.
I think if you look back at his game, and maybe people consider this, lots of the more recent seasons that have come into play since the 2011 poll, there have been quite a few that have been, shall we say, lots of playing hard versus playing smart, so lots of kind of wild moves, and I think that drew in a lot more people. So there may be new people coming in who aren't as familiar with Tom's game and may more remember him from Heroes versus Villains, where he was out pre-merge. And then even going back to his original game, he wasn't. It was kind of a pagonging of a season, and that might have actually caused it to drop a little bit in terms of some of the more recent exciting gameplay.
Boy, this is going to be very interesting to see whether, Tom probably didn't do it with a lot of sizzle, but he certainly was, one of the stronger and most dominant players that we've ever seen in the game, and his win in Palau was probably one of the more dominant wins we've ever seen in the game. So I would say it's Survivor Tom at 18. I would be buying this stock.
I would be holding on the stock myself. I think that, again, we're comparing it back to the 536 people who voted last time, who were probably lifers in terms of watching the Survivor, I'm guessing maybe that a lot more of the people who came in now haven't maybe even seen his original game. So I think that's probably a good reason why he fell the way he did.
Is Tom Westman a victim of the recency bias?
Not necessarily the recency bias as much as just people simply not having seen many of the early seasons.
Yeah, I wonder how much... Oh, go ahead, Kaz.
I think it's some recency bias and some kind of, like you said, there's just nothing flashy about his game and the game he played in Palau, so I think it's easy to kind of overlook him or say, he didn't really have to do anything special to win it. I think that just drops him because there's no flash there.
I also wonder how much, he's somebody who, to my knowledge, not on Twitter. You never see Tom Westman, and I wonder if there's sort of like an out of sight, out of mind sort of thing with him, where if Tom Westman was, somebody that you would see in social media or see more often than you do in appearances, that maybe he would be less forgotten by the Survivor voting public.
Yeah, very possibly. And plus the fact that this kind of lends some weight to what people were saying about voting for a top 10 and a top 20 countdown. He may have been a lot of people's, maybe towards, kind of appearing on some people's ballots towards the bottom of that top 10 list. I don't know how often he would have been at the top of it. If you'd expanded it out a little bit more, maybe he would have gotten more points, more votes, more consideration.
Ian Terry says, not a good placing for Tom. That's about as perfect a first-time showing as possible. The Ian Mind F was God tier, and I don't think he's talking in the third person.
I will say that is one of the best and maybe most underrated moves ever. It's something that really just doesn't ever get talked about, that he talked this kid into just giving up $1 million. It's pretty amazing, actually.
Okay, let's take some more comments from you guys. Jacob Wilson said, Tom at 18, whoa. I think we're getting ready for some dominance by RHAP faves like Tyson, Otis, and Cochran. Okay, we'll see if that's the case. I don't know. Again, we have not heard any of those 3 names called yet tonight. This is from Ash Collier. Says, Tom, love, the hero of my childhood. Wish he was higher. I didn't make my own top 10 list for a number of different reasons, but I don't know if I would have had Tom in my top 10, but I think I would have had him higher than 18.
And looking kind of, again, like the common theme throughout many of the comments was he was pretty much consistently lauded for playing an honest, clean game alongside being a huge physical threat. So I think there's a lot of admiration out there for kind of almost being the anti-Russell in terms of basically being nice to everybody and just being straightforward and not really getting necessarily a lot of blood on his hands other than the blood that necessarily comes from having to vote somebody out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he suffers from sort of the new school thing where nowadays everything is idols and blindsiding people, and he just didn't really have to do any of that. And so I think that kind of takes away on some people's lists who maybe come from that new school of thinking.
He was definitely a player from another era. He was, played in the last pre-Immunity Idol season. He played a season that really had almost no twists, right?
Was that the season where they had the first two people on the beach were?
Oh yeah, yes. That was the twist was in the first episode. But after that, then basically a twist-free season.
We need Wanda back.
We need Wanda back. This is from Brian Gold. Says Tom is way too low. He played one of the most dominant games in Palau. Can't take that away from him because of heroes versus villains. Hashtag RHAP. Speaking of Wanda, did Wanda place on the top 424?
Yes, she did. She actually had a pretty good showing. It looks like 152nd place for Wanda.
Whoa! Higher than Matthew von Ertfelder?
Of course. I mean, she was out there for 12 hours. She has to be higher than Matthew, right?
Again, I think that's one of those that I think she was a popular joke ballot where somebody's like, okay, well, I want to, here's my player that I like, and then let me stuff the ballot box with points for people that I don't want to compete with my person. Do we know where she placed in 2011?
I don't have it handy, but I think it was somewhere around 152, actually.
Okay, around there. So she's holding strong.
And how dare you say she doesn't deserve that spot? Wanda's a great player.
I guess not. Hey, she was never voted out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's take one more question here about Tom from Lance Davis. Says, I agree. I would say that Tom is a top 12 player in terms of overall rankings. So, I think we're low on Tom. We'll see who's above Tom and see if there's anybody anything that I would switch around. But so let me just go ahead and I want to follow this along. So 20 is Chris, and then 19 is Amanda if you're just joining us, and then 18 is Tom Westman. Okay, so we have 2 men, 1 woman in the original top 20 from 2011. It was very male-heavy, 16 men and only 4 women in the top 20 in 2011. We will see if progress has come to the all-time Survivor top 20. So far, one of those 4 women has already had her number called, so we'll see if more women join the top 20 this time around. So what do you think? Kaz, are you ready for number 17?
I am. So coming in at number 17 is another man.
Okay.
3-time player and a 3-time loser, Ozzy Lusth.
Oh, we went right into it. No build-up right there. Boom, Ozzy. Now, Ozzy is somebody, amazingly, he plays in Survivor 13, 26, and most recently in South Pacific. And interestingly, in 2011, he was number 20 on the list. So he's the first person to go up in the rankings that we have talked about here in the top 20. And so Ozzy, and it's interesting because he did not have a great strategic showing in Survivor South Pacific. He was dominant in challenges as always, but his social game appeared to take a step back in Survivor South Pacific. But he did really do a great job with winning all those challenges on Redemption Island. So what's your take? How come Ozzy jumps up here 3 spots, Kaz?
I don't know, because he got voted out 3 times in the same game. So I'm confused how that jumps him up. I don't get this one at all, actually. When we did this the first time, I wasn't really sure. I mean, I was not an Ozzy fan, but I got to say, after seeing him the 3rd time, I'm so done with him. He seems like a horrible player who's just kind of an athlete, and a track star. And without Redemption Island, he's out in 11th place or something like that. I just don't think he's fit to ever win Survivor. I don't think he's a good player. I think his strategy is generally very poor. I think this is way too high for Ozzy.
Yeah, I think the bump comes from the fact that he was kind of a spotlight player. Like, you had obviously Russell and Rob, but then on his season Ozzy and Coach, and so he was kind of a spotlighted returning player that may have been new to some people, but was kind of held on a pedestal by people on his show. Was a little bit of a leader, And so, deserved or not, I think that spotlight impact potentially launched him up a little bit because he has been kind of more the center of one of the seasons.
Yeah, very, very interesting. It's funny, in the 2011 edition, we were recording that in, I think it was July 2011, and we knew that the upcoming season, this was before South Pacific was going to air, but we knew it was filming, and we knew that Coach and Ozzy were going to be a part of that season. So it was sort of like giving him an incomplete grade in the 2011 edition because we knew that he had one more season that was going to be coming in the fall. So it's just very interesting to me to see him go up from 20 when we said, well, we'll have to see if Ozzy ever plays Survivor again, where he goes from here. He did end up with a 4th place finish, so that could be very top of mind in the voters, but I feel like I think that's probably too high for Ozzy as somebody who I think is a one-dimensional player.
And speaking of that one-dimensionalness, the comments again were very much focusing on his prowess as an athlete, basically his challenge dominance. So that was, for people who did rank him highly, that was a big reason why.
Okay. Now, I'm also seeing some people saying that we're being too low on Ozzy and should be higher on the list. Mikey Mike on Twitter says Kaz is totally wrong. Ozzy should have won 2 of those seasons and be higher on the list. So, oh my God, higher than 17 for Ozzy.
I'm trying to figure out which 2 seasons he should have won. So obviously Cook Islands is one, and I guess then South Pacific is the other one.
I would think so.
Yeah, it's
and. I wonder if he played his best game in Micronesia.
Yeah, I think so, and that's not saying much because he didn't really even play that well in that time. I got to say, as much as I get crap for being an Amanda hater, I'd have Amanda higher than Ozzy. I think this is extremely high for Ozzy, and I don't think he belongs anywhere near here.
Kaz, does your Ozzy hate come because of his proximity to Amanda Kimmel? Is that why you don't like him also?
I could make a very terrible joke here, and I'll steer away from it. But no, I really think I don't even picture him with Amanda anymore. It really is just he's a track star who happens to be on Survivor and happened to be on a Redemption Island season. I don't think this is anywhere he belongs.
Okay. Speaking of the track star, one of the comments that I loved was that watching Ozzy in competitions and in camp was like watching an Olympic caliber athlete.
Hey, that's true. That's true. Olympic caliber athlete. Okay, let's take some of your comments here. This is from Michelle, who says, Ozzy deserved to move up on the list. He was low on the old list, in my opinion. He was fun to watch and a good player. So you can see where Ozzy's support is coming from. A lot of people feel like Ozzy is underrated.
He's definitely
Depends what
got
you're
his
looking
fans.
for.
Yeah, I think if you're somebody who values winning a bunch of immunity challenges or Redemption Island challenges, it's certainly feasible to have him that high. I don't think that's really what Survivor is all about, and I don't think Ozzy excels or even really does okay at the other more important parts of the game.
Yeah, this could be the most polarizing response that we've had so far in the top 20 because I'm getting a lot of tweets anti-Ozzy but also pro-Ozzy. Noah Daugherty says, Ozzy's physical prowess is the only thing he has going for him. A terrible social/strategic player. # one-trick pony.
Yeah, it's hard not to agree to that.
Yeah. I think if he ever comes back without the ability to win all these challenges, people will be kind of surprised and say, whoa, he's actually a terrible player, and he'll be out first because he's not valuable anymore.
I think it depends on what part of the game you value. Brendan Fitzpatrick in the chat says challenges are part of the game. I mean, the game is outwit, outplay, outlast. We tend to maybe overvalue the strategic part of the game, but, Ozzy is a dominant player in one area of the game. Why should that not count as much as people who are dominant in the strategic part of the game, Kaz?
I think because, challenges are one piece and they're set up to sort of jumble the game up when things get stagnant and you have a pagogging and somebody wins immunity. But in terms of the social aspect, which is obviously the most important part, Ozzy tends to be a bit of an egomaniac, doesn't seem to be the brightest guy out there. I know Penner at Cook Islands finale kind of said, well, you're trying to set up a commune for surfers, and that doesn't sound like a very productive thing. I think he's very one-track mind kind of guy, and I just don't think he fits in with the key components of what an actual good Survivor player are.
Curt, is outwit, outplay, outlast the strategic, the social, and the athletic. Are those three things, like, is it 33%, 33%, 33%, or is it more of a pyramid where, one of those is the least valuable piece of the puzzle, and then there's a middle one and a bigger piece of the puzzle?
And you know what? I'd have to say that they're probably weighted differently, and I don't even know if I would necessarily consider outplay the challenges. I see outwit and outplay going hand in hand. Outwit about knowing when you need to make the moves you need to do, and outplay is like, if I outplay you, that could be in terms of a move that I make or in a challenge that I win. So I don't necessarily kind of hold the I wholeheartedly believe in our three circles of what makes the ultimate Survivor player. I don't know if those match up one for one to the slogan of Survivor, but I think you can have a terrible competition track record and still get to the end and still win. But if you have a terrible social game and you win every competition and get to the end, you're not going to win the game. So I think you have to weight the social element more and the strategic element more.
Okay. Here's from this is the comment that we read from Mike, that Kaz is totally wrong. So Mikey Mike puts an exclamation point on that. At number 17, Mr. Overrated, no strategic game at all, and only won one immunity challenge after Cook Islands. Way too high. That's from Hunter on YouTube. Now, in fairness, he was voted out pretty much right after the merge in Micronesia and also in South Pacific. So you can't fault Ozzy for not winning the immunity challenges. He wasn't there.
True.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take one more comment and then we'll move on. This is from the Mayans Were Wrong on YouTube. Ozzy equals most overrated Survivor player ever. Well, whether he's underrated or whether he's overrated, he is now rated at number 17 on the all-time top 20. So congratulations to Ozzy at number 17. Okay. Are you guys ready to go to number 16, Curt?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And boy, if the first four that we've revealed here, the first 20% of the list is any indication, I think we are only in for a more controversial and polarizing night. I could see the comment section absolutely exploding after this show tonight.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of, well, how come this person didn't even break the top 20, let alone where people did rank in the top 20. So
yeah. Let me give a note to the commenters here. Like, I know it's going to be very easy to get into arguments with people. Just try to either listen to what people are saying and then give your counter argument, but just don't get into the personal attacks. I'm going to shut it down if you start calling people stupid or an idiot or, leave it. Just leave it. Make your point, make your case, but no personal attacks on the comments on the RHAPwebsite.com. Please. We'll shut it down. Don't test me, people. Okay? All right. Curt, are you ready for number 16 on the list?
Yes, I am. So number 16, and I kind of like the playing is by the comments. So this is a person. One comment about this person. One of the voters ranked this person number 1 because he not only played a dominating game, but played it without any emotion. He's probably the only true villain ever to play Survivor. From Season 5, Brian Heidik.
Brian Heidik. There you go. Okay. Well, everybody knows that I am a fan of Brian Heidik's game in Survivor Thailand. I feel like he is very good. I think he's very underrated. I think that I would have him higher than 16 here in the all-time rankings. I nominated him for the Survivor Hall of Fame this past December. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about Mr. Brian Heidik, the Iceman, Kaz.
I love Brian Heidik. I think this is too low as well. I think he's a definite top 10 kind of guy. Probably the only person who's ever faked a personality for 39 days. I mean, completely went out there and pretended to be this nice guy and just did his car salesman thing of pretending he's a nice guy when he's really not. And he just toyed with everybody, made it look absolutely easy. I mean, just ran laps around everybody. Great strategist, really smart guy, got along with everybody socially, banked the 4 votes that he needed, and then didn't really even worry about the other 3 because he knew he had it in the bag. I think Brian's a tremendous player. He's a guy who could probably never succeed if he ever went back, but I don't think that's what we're evaluating here. I think if you stick him out there with a bunch of random people, he's an excellent player and one of the 10 best of all time.
Brian Heidik was in number 10. Interestingly, in the 2011 list, Tom Westman was 9, Brian Heidik was 10. Tom Westman falls further than Brian Heidik, but Brian Heidik still falls on his own down to 16 from 10, down 6 spots. So, Curt, what's your take on Mr. Brian Heidik?
I don't know, it's kind of interesting, and I was just sitting here thinking, and keep in mind I haven't watched this season since it originally aired. Most of the seasons I haven't seen since they've originally aired. But I'm looking back at Boston Rob's last season and how basically he was the head of a tribe of people that he had a very, strong control over, and who all kind of looked at him as a leader. And I'm wondering to what extent Brian actually played the same game. Like, it seemed like I'm thinking back to Jan and Helen and Clay and Ted. I'm trying to remember the names, so I probably got several of those wrong. But it seemed like he was. You look at that final group towards the end, and he was just like the clear winner early on. If he could make it to the end and no one seemed to be willing to make a move against him, he was going to win this game, which seemed to be a very similar situation that Rob Mariano was in Redemption Island.
Yeah, it's like Richard Hatch sort of gets the credit for making the first alliance, but I think then Brian Heidik should get the credit as being the first person to make the thing where you have an alliance of 5 and everybody wants to go to the end with you. And I think that basically even Boston Rob, I felt like, was doing something similar in the All-Stars, and he didn't quite nail it down until Survivor Redemption Island. But Brian Heidik was the guy. He had that group of 5. Everybody was going to the end with him. And while it was a bit of a pagonging and somewhat boring season, he at that last final 5 was exciting because it was interesting to see if anybody was going to catch him, and they ultimately didn't. And he got people like Jan and Helen to do things that were against their best interests. He took out Big Ted at the final 5 and goes to the final 2 with Clay because he knows that he can beat him. And he just was stone cold. A lot of people don't like his personality. People don't like the thing with he shot a dog with a bow and arrow.
Allegedly.
And then he has the whole thing where he was in the Dirty movie, and people think he's sleazy. And, he also came off kind of arrogant after the show. But if we're just talking about his Survivor game, the guy was really, really good, and not to mention, he was also, this gets overlooked, he won a lot of the challenges. I think he won the last 3 immunities down the stretch as well.
Yeah, definitely a challenge threat.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that gets overlooked a little bit is when he gets inside the final 5, he basically tells Jan to her face, you're going out in 3rd or 4th place, and you should be happy with that. And she was, and I think, somebody who has that ability to tell somebody to their face, I'm going to take you far, but you're not going to make it to the end and win, and they don't care. I think you got to give him major credit for that. He picked the right people to align with, the right people to boot out early. I think he played a nearly flawless game.
And that was in spite of the fact that I believe that was the season that opened with Pick'em, between the 2 tribes.
Yes.
And they picked the 2 oldest people anyway, Jan assembled their tribe, I believe, and they ended up with a largely older tribe. And I think it was once the younger tribe through a challenge to vote out Jed, then things just swung in their favor, and they just steamrolled to the end.
Okay, let's take some of your commentary on Brian Heidik at number 16. This is from R. Philly. The one-time player winners get robbed because of the popularity of the returnees who don't necessarily play at their level. Heidik higher. Okay, so do you think that Brian Heidik is hurt by his only one time on the show?
I don't. I think if you put him back out there a second time, he goes out 1st or 2nd. I just don't think he's the type of guy who can ever return when people know who he is and expect to have any success. But if you could actually have him play his first time 2 or 3 times, I think we'd definitely be bumping him up the list. But I actually think he benefits from only playing once.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that are interesting when we talk about these things, where we talked about this sort of in the 2011 version. It's almost like you need like some sort of like a computer simulation that would simulate the season 100 times or 1,000 times and give us a percentage of how many times they would win, and if you put them with like a different group of people, how many times they would win. And that would be probably the true test of how good a person is at Survivor. For Brian Heidik, if he came back and played again, I think that there would be some people that wouldn't like the whole thing with the, the whole past history stuff. But if he came back and played again with more recent players, how many of the recent players are even on top of what Brian Heidik did in 2002?
That's why I have to disagree with Kaz's stance on this. I think that if he came back, especially considering some of the more recent players who have notoriety as well, either in the game or out of the game, I don't think that there's necessarily enough of strong memories about him to think that he would be out first or second. I think he could potentially do very well. I think he would potentially know how to play the players again. And I think just that second appearance, even if he goes out immediately pre-merge, depending on how good his game was prior to that, I think we would see potentially a bump in his ranking if he was to come back and play another season.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess I should clarify that I'm saying I was thinking for whatever reason that if he played on All-Stars or something. But yeah, if he comes back with 12 people who don't know who he is and 2 or 3 who do, yeah, I think he's absolutely a contender to win again.
Oh, I'm even talking All-Stars. I'm sure there's enough people who came back who've played the game who might not even know who he is. Given the number of recruits that we have in recent seasons. So
I mean the original All-Stars. I'm sorry, season 8.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Gotcha.
Yeah. And if he did come back on the All-Stars, I think that if you sort of like did the math on this, he probably ends up with Boston Rob's spot.
Absolutely, and then Survivor has changed forever.
So you basically changed the whole space-time continuum. How about that? Keith Dixon in the chat room is asking, get Brian Heidik on a recap podcast. I have reached out to Brian Heidik. I actually got his email address from he did an interview on the Survivor Oz podcast, and Ben was nice enough to get me Brian Heidik's address, and I reached out to Brian Heidik, but I never heard back from Brian Heidik. So the Iceman was being ice cold to me.
Yeah,
Well,
not for lack of trying. He's been reached out to.
Yes.
Yeah, if he somehow hears this, I think we'd all love to hear him on a recap podcast this coming year.
It would be fun. All right, so let's go to Travis Nick says Brian should be way higher. I think I had him at 6. Okay, so people are saying the Iceman should have been higher. Maybe he didn't get out enough campaign people.
I think he's another one kind of like Tom that's hurt by no social media presence. We basically haven't heard from him since season 5, so I think between that and the porn and the puppy killing and everything, I think that can only hurt him.
For the record, Kaz, soft core, no penetration or anything like that. So
we don't know if his poll was up like yours?
It's a judgment-free zone, Kaz.
Soft core, excuse me.
Yeah, by the way, we see that at 2 out of the 5 guys so far on the list, hey, not shy, right, Curt?
Neighbors, right on the list.
Yeah, there you go. This is from Hunter on YouTube. Says, I think Brian was a dominating player in Thailand. Should be higher, only low because it was a bad season. I think it was a bad season. People don't like the puppy thing. People don't like that he has a little bit of a bad reputation, and also the fact was it was just so long ago. So I think recency bias hurts him.
Yeah, I was really tempted to insert a question about just for how many seasons of Survivor have you watched, but the survey was long enough as it was. But at that very least, we could have been interested to cut the results by people who have watched just the last 10 versus the entire run.
It's interesting. Okay, this is from Nick 2S. Brian is one of the rare cases where I can't recall what I thought while watching his season. I hated him and his season after it to this day, but still consider him a top 10 player. So Nick is very conflicted. Conflicting feelings about Brian Heidik. It's like you want to hate him, but he was good, and so he makes you feel you don't know how to feel about Brian Heidik. All right, so we have 5 in the books, 25% of the way there. I think this is going to be it's going to be a long show tonight here, folks. So but that's why we started at 8 on the East Coast, because we didn't want to keep you up past midnight or anything like that. By the way, breaking news today that a couple of media outlets, including Dalton Ross of Entertainment Weekly, reported the Survivor San Juan del Sur premiere will be exactly 3 months from tonight on September 24th. So we are about 90 days away from the premiere of Survivor San Juan del Sur. And Survivor Know-It-Alls live after the episode, 1 hour premiere on September 24th. So fittingly 3 months from today exactly. So a lot to do in between now and then. All right. So, are you ready for number 15? Back to Kaz.
Yeah, so number 15 is another man on the list, a two-time player and somebody who I would say has some background in RHAP as a podcast. In fact, he might have even been so popular that he was named Mr. Survivor, Malcolm Freberg.
All right, here is Malcolm, and this is a nice going away present for Malcolm before he's off wayfaring away in July. So shout out to Mr. Survivor, Malcolm. All right, so out of the people that we have on our list, Heidik, Ozzy, Tom Westman, Amanda, and Chris, Malcolm becomes the first person to not have a Survivor Finals appearance. So, Curt, what do you make of Malcolm here at number 15?
I think we might have the RHAP bump here. I think, given his popularity, not just on the, and also throw in a little bit of recency bias as well. He's been on, 25 and 26, and he's a popular, visitor to the podcast, and like Kaz said, he is our Mr. Survivor, and just generally a likable person. And he's played an interesting game. I mean, he's made it a decent, attempts both of his forays into the game. So, I think the debate might be, should he place higher than some of these former winners? I think that's what's up for debate.
Kaz, what's your take of Malcolm here at number 15?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with Curt here. I mean, he's obviously getting the RHAP bump, but I think that's sort of
for the record, though. Let's that I don't think that Malcolm got a RHAP bump. I think that Malcolm has his own bump. He's a very popular player, and not because he appears on RHAP as a podcast. Just for the record, let me just clarify that.
Yeah, I agree. I think his popularity is part of what makes him a good player. I mean, who doesn't like Malcolm? You never hear somebody go, "Gosh, that Malcolm guy really pisses me off." I think he's made for this game. He's physical. He's extremely social. Everybody likes him. He's got some good strategy. He made a few mistakes his first time around. I mean, it's really disappointing when you go back and rewatch the Philippines and realize he's probably one conversation with Denise away from winning that game. But I think he's someone who's absolutely built to play Survivor. I think we're probably going to see him at least 2 more times before Survivor ends, and I think he's someone who could absolutely win a season. I think this is right around the sweet spot for Malcolm where he belongs, and I think only brighter stuff for Malcolm in the future. I think this is he's got serious potential, to say the least.
Malcolm, I do think he is a 3-tool player. I think he has everything that you need in a Survivor. However, I just don't think that he has played a complete game yet. And while I think that he certainly has the potential to play one of the greatest games of all time, I don't think he's done that yet in either of his 2 seasons. I feel like Philippines was probably the best and of his 2 seasons, and of course we love some of the fireworks that happen in Survivor Karamoan, but I don't think that Malcolm has played as dominant of a game as some of these winners that we've talked about that are lower than him on the list: Brian Heidik, Tom Westman, and Chris. You want to have Malcolm ahead of Ozzy or ahead of Amanda? I have no problem with that, but I feel like those 3 winners should probably be ahead of Malcolm because of the dominant, in Chris's case, I wouldn't say he played a dominant game, but probably they should probably be closer in the rankings, I think.
I guess the way I look at it is, and this is probably different for everybody, but are we weighing results? Or are we weighing, if this person goes and plays 10,000 times, how well do they do? And I think, even though Malcolm hasn't won, I think he's better suited to play Survivor and win Survivor than some of those winners. He's got bigger balls than I think everybody else on this list so far. And we don't know that from seeing some, or we do know that from seeing some of them.
His problem is he has shaky balls. If he had steadier balls, he would have won Survivor Philippines.
But I think he, I love the hold-up bro moment, and I think that's something that 99% of players wouldn't even consider, because not only does he ask Reynolds for his idol and convince him to give it to him in 2 seconds, but he actually votes for Reynolds and thinks Reynolds is the one who might go home if he pulls this off. I don't think most people have that killer instinct to say, you know what, I'm going to go for broke here, and if it doesn't work, then I can't work with Reynolds anymore. I think Malcolm's, he thinks outside the box a little more than these other people, and that's why I think I'd have him a little higher than even some of the winners we've talked about.
All right, again, like with the previous 4 people, the reaction all over the place here with Malcolm. This is from the Gamer Girl 2330, says, "Woohoo, Malcolm, but he should be way higher." So Gamer Girl wants higher than 15 for Malcolm. Here's from Alex Mullane. Says, Malcolm was a serious social threat, strategic threat, and physical, but unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to keep his assets under wraps, and he should probably be lower because he wasn't able to keep under the radar, but still a great survivor. I don't know if I have a problem with Malcolm at 15 per se. I just think that there are some people that are lower than Malcolm that should be higher. But I need to see what the other 14 people on the list are. So before I can sort of rejigger things a little bit, Curt.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think I like Kaz's point, of the people that we've talked to so far, if we look at that Venn diagram of the three components of the ideal survivor player, I think of everybody we've talked about so far, he is most in the center of that diagram in terms of being a triple threat. But in terms of being, so we've got the great playing piece, but in terms of putting it onto a game board with other playing pieces and having there be success there, it just hasn't happened yet. I think that needs to happen for him to potentially be as high as he is. I think he's a little bit overplayed, but I'm glad to see him in the top 20.
Okay. This is from Jacob Wilson. He says, I think number 15 is a good spot for Malcolm, the first good placement yet. Okay. So, and then we have from Dylan Lightning, says, number 15, Malcolm. In my top 10, he played a great game. I love when he saved himself and Eddie in season 26. Everyone was shocked and didn't know what to do. He needs to be on another season. Okay. Well, he'll be on another season of Wayfaring starting on July 1st. This is A. Calastro says, RHAP gets the Malcolm bump. That's right. We appreciate it when we get it. Okay. Let's take a couple more from Johnson Ludo. Malcolm is definitely not better than Tom Westman. He was just likable and decent in challenges. That's it. Okay. That's right. That's it.
I got to put a claim out there now since we're getting some doubters. I'm going to say this. Malcolm plays at least 2 more times. Book it right now. Malcolm wins a season of Survivor before it's all said and done.
Curt, what are you going to buy or sell? Malcolm wins a season of Survivor before it's said and done.
If he comes back, I would at least place him in the finals. And I think if he does get to the finals, he just seems so likable. I don't see how he couldn't win.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I definitely think he has a shot, especially if he plays in a season with returning player and let's say hypothetically they did like a Malcolm versus Cochran season or something like that, and it was like he was sort of in a setup where he had like a bunch of new players, sort of like how Boston Rob had in Redemption Island. I think he is really set up well to be in a situation like that. If it's all if it's all returning players, it's like all bets are off. Who knows how the hell that's going to break down? But I feel like if he had a chance, I think new players would certainly follow Malcolm wherever he wanted to take them.
Oh, agreed. I would completely agree.
Let's take one more comment on Malcolm, and then we got to move on. From Jeremiah Yap, Malcolm is for sure a top 20 player. Both outings he played very aggressively and smart. That resulted in high placements overall. So congratulations to Mr. Survivor. What a year 2014 has been. He's named Mr. Survivor. He gets his own travel show and becomes number 15 on the Survivor all-time top 20 players list. Okay, let's move on to number 14. Curt, take it away.
Number 14, we have a returning player, someone who's played 2 seasons, and somebody who is not around to potentially make it into the 2011 list. So at number 14... friend of the show, winner of Reality Game Masters, John Cochran.
Oh, Cochran and Malcolm, very back-to-back, very interesting. Okay, so there you go. Also interesting, I didn't note it there. Malcolm was the first player who was not on the 2011 list to make the list. Cochran becomes the second. So this is sort of an interesting, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. Would you rather Cochran or Malcolm, Kaz? And I'm talking about as a Survivor player.
Okay, good. For a Survivor player, I'd rather have Malcolm. I think Cochran's got a lot of ability, even though you probably wouldn't guess that from looking at him. Kind of what happened in the first time out there, I think, is what you can expect sometimes with him. But I also think he got a pretty bad draw as far as castmate or tribe mates. I think if he's on the other tribe, he does better. Obviously, the second time he comes back and wins, I think that's definitely helped by him having a bunch of friends in the cast, but I still think he's got some talent for the game. I would not put him in my top 20, but I think he's a skilled player. I think, maybe 10, 15 spots lower than this is probably about right. I think he's a good player. I just don't think he quite belongs in the top 20.
Curt, did you happen to see the Vine that Malcolm posted today?
No, I did not.
It's very funny if you check it out. I'm not sure if it was from Malcolm's Twitter or what, but it's basically like you see from behind, you see Malcolm standing there with the ponytail, and then there's sort of like a slow reveal, and then when he turns around, you see it's actually Cochran in like a Malcolm wig, saying like, oh, isn't it so funny when I talk about Harry Potter? And basically, they're trying to promote Malcolm's travel show, which is coming up. But it's very cute. So, all right, Cochran and Malcolm. I love that these two guys are back to back. I probably have the same thing to say about Cochran that I did about Malcolm. That I feel like it's a little high, but he's still at least a Survivor winner. So I guess the placement feels right to have Cochran above Malcolm, but I'm not sure if I could put Cochran ahead of the Tom Westmans and Brian Heidiks of the world.
I completely agree. Like it's right. I get this weird when I think of Cochran's time on Survivor. I get this weird kind of just haze in my head. And it's like, well, I know that he was the guy that flipped and it didn't work out for him his first season. He's the guy that won the second season. But anything else that happened along the way is kind of a little bit fuzzy for me. So I'd say like he's a good player. He won. But that's really, I think, as far as I can actually push him. I also don't think I would have him in the top 20.
You wouldn't even have him inside the top 20, Curt.
I don't think I would.
Wow. Kaz, would you have Cochran in your top 20?
No, I put together a full 20, and he wasn't even in contention for the last 5 spots, really. So I don't think he quite belongs here. I think there are better players who, both that we've talked about and that missed the list. Yeah, he won a season, but I don't think that's something that we could expect very often.
Okay.
If I factored in Reality Game Masters, I would bump him into my top 20.
Two-time winner. Yeah. Megan Z in the chat room says, hey, Cochran's in the Strategic 6, remember? That's right. So Jeff Probst recently on Reddit confirmed Cochran and Malcolm both in the Strategic 6.
Do you think Jeff remembers any seasons that happened even like 2 or 3 years ago, though? I'm surprised he can even remember season 26, honestly.
Yes, Survivor Redemption Island was 3 years ago. And Parvati's in the Strategic 6 since she hasn't played in 3 years.
And who else was in it?
Even Probst admitted after the fact that he was put on the spot, and there's probably lots of people he left out.
I think Steven shamed him. I think so.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's take some reactions to Cochran at number 14. All right, this is from Cullen Carey. Shocked to see Cochran further up than Tom and Malcolm. His first season was atrocious. Not quite a top 20 player to me. I might have to make my own top 20 and get out a cocktail napkin after the fact. I think you'd have him in the top 20. I'd have to see what mine look like, but I think that's again, I don't have a problem with the number. I just have a problem with some of the other guys that I think are too low. Let's go to a question from Johnson Ludo. Cochran is a superstar and deserves the rating, maybe a couple places higher, and maybe even funnier than you, Rob. How about that?
No, absolutely not.
He's killing it, Cochran.
I think that show has fewer viewers than this podcast.
No, now you're talking in hyperbole, Kaz. That
maybe.
Yeah, I don't need to be the tabulator to tell you that you're way off with that one. Okay, this is from Francie Jean, who says Cochran is okay, but not a top 20 player. Well, no, that's not the case. He is indeed a top 20 player now. That he's officially number 14 player of all time. Somebody who did not play yet at the time of the 2011 list, but makes his debut at number 14 here in 2014, and we'll see where he holds in 2017. A couple more comments on Cochran. So Cochran wins his RHAP bragging rights over Malcolm in the top 20 list. Hashtag pandering, hashtag RHAP, hashtag too high.
I want to know, do you have Malcolm or Cochran higher?
Would I have Malcolm or Cochran higher?
Yeah.
I think I would have Cochran higher because I wonder if Malcolm played 100 times, I don't know how many times people would let Malcolm get to the end. where Cochran, I think his problem is more like they're almost completely the opposite players, where Cochran, if he can make it to the merge, he's probably going to be, Survivor South Pacific notwithstanding, as long as he's not on the wrong side of the numbers. But he's a guy that you're not going to worry about there. And he ends up being even the last of the Savai to be eliminated, where almost in the same way like a Sandra, where you're not going to worry about him winning challenges. Ironically, he did win a lot of challenges in Survivor Caramoan. But Malcolm's almost the opposite, where pre-merge, Malcolm is going to make the merge basically, 999 times out of 1,000. And then once he makes it to the merge, then the target is more often than not going to be on his back. People can say, oh boy, Malcolm's a really good player. We got to get rid of Malcolm. So if he doesn't have the numbers on his side, I think he's going to have a problem. So I think that Cochran's win percentage could potentially be higher than Malcolm's, because Malcolm is going to get picked off as a threat. Or maybe, it's hard to say, but Malcolm's going to get picked off as a threat almost as many times as Cochran is going to get picked off as somebody who's not a help in the challenges. But Cochran's getting buffed now, so who knows?
And I don't want to dwell on the specific numbers again. I think this is our top 20. But I think one thing to consider is, based on the actual results, there was about a 60-point difference between Brian Heidik and Malcolm. That's 6 first-place votes that could be the difference there. So that's very close. That's potentially within the margin of error. You could talk about those guys in the same breath. But there was a good 400 points between Malcolm and Cochran. And so there was a little bit more of a definitive gap there. And so I think Again, this is the collective assembled opinion of the RHAP galaxy, and they seem to place Cochran higher.
Okay. Interesting. Let's take a little more comments and we got to move on. Let's go from R. Philly. Cochran is a good player, but I think he loses some points for the undeniable tandem of he and Dawn operating as a pair all game. Well, what the hell was Malcolm and Denise? How about
exactly.
that?
Exactly.
I don't want to make it only this is Cochran versus Malcolm, but there's just something about those two guys that they both played on the same season. They're dressing up like each other on Vine. They're similarly aged. They both are of the same era of Survivor. Like, I just feel like the Cochran and Malcolm are just like this Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, two players that are just like always together.
Best Amazing Race team ever, right?
Yeah. And they're opposites. But they're both great guys. It's a fun pair. This is amazing. Oh, go ahead, Kaz.
I think we actually got robbed, because I think if Cochran goes out in 4th place on season 26, then we do end up getting a Malcolm versus Cochran season. But I think after winning, he's ultimately done with the show.
Yeah. All right, Amazing Race Nodal says, Cochran was a really good player, but wouldn't have beaten Ozzy in 23. I liked his strategic play in 26, though a few spots lower, maybe 16th may have been better. Okay, so Amazing Race Know-It-All is not thrilled with number 14 for Cochran. Okay, so let's go back to Kaz here for an odd number 13. Okay, here we go.
So number 13 is someone who is actually tied to Cochran in a weird sort of way. It's another man, and it's a one-timer. This man actually described himself as the John Cochran who doesn't suck. Coming in at number 13, Spencer Bledsoe.
Wow. Okay. Spencer at number 13 overall. Well, Russell Hantz is going to be happy because Spencer played the perfect game, and so I gotta say, gut reaction, and you guys know I love Spencer. Okay, nobody's a bigger Spencer fan than me, but I think that's a little high. I think
recency bias.
I think the recency bias might have struck there. I mean, if you're just gonna compare him to the other two guys that we talked about in Cochran and Malcolm, I think you got to probably have Cochran ahead, because Cochran actually won the game, albeit on the second time. Spencer actually did better than Cochran on the first time. So I don't know. Could I talk myself into Spencer better than Cochran?
Yeah, maybe it's potentially indicative of things to come if he was to play another season. This is like something that we could. That's pretentious of how he would actually perform. So I think. He would potentially do well another season. Maybe that's where people are kind of placing him, but I think it's very heavily recency bias in this case.
Yeah. Kaz, thoughts on Spencer at 13?
Yeah, I think this is too high. I think he's got a ton of potential. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if, one or two more lists 3 or 6 years down the road, we do have him higher on this list and he actually deserves it. But ultimately, I think this is too high based on what we've seen so far. I actually loved him in preseason more than I loved him on the show. I loved both, but preseason, you're never going to find a better preseason cast bio. But I was kind of disappointed actually with his Golden Boy edit, and I wanted to see the evil Spencer who's always playing from the front and making big strategic moves. Instead, he was kind of saddled on with Tony or trying to get Tony out or trying to get other people out. He was never really in the driver's seat, so I think this is ultimately too high for him based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to take anything away from Spencer, who I think is a guy who really, really knows the game too high. But just a little probably too high. I think that there are some other guys that probably would have ahead of him. Now, let's have this hypothetical. Okay, Spencer comes back in a season, and Malcolm is on the same season. Who do you got? Who's going further in the game, Spencer or Malcolm?
Are they on the same tribe or different tribes?
Same tribe.
Spencer.
Spencer going further. Curt.
My initial gut reaction was Spencer, only because I don't think he was seen as much as a challenge threat as a challenge crutch, perhaps. Like the fact that he was able to perform and pick up the slack of his teammates. But then again, he did win several challenges at the end of his season. So I don't know. My gut reaction is that Spencer would go further.
It's almost like going back to Venn diagrams here. It's almost like Spencer is the intersection of Malcolm and Cochran. Discuss, Kaz.
I don't disagree at all. I think that's actually a great way to put it. I think he's definitely got the strategic part of the game down, even though we didn't really get to see that. But like you said, he's also got the physical aspects that Malcolm has. He came across as way more likable than I think to the average fan, came across as more likable than I think any of us would have guessed. And obviously, Malcolm and Cochran are both extremely popular. So I think that's actually a great way to describe it. I just don't think you can quite put him in that class with those two guys based on what we've seen so far. But I do think down the road, potential is certainly there for him to be in this discussion.
Yeah, and on the upside potential chart, it's almost like the things that we said about Malcolm, I almost feel like you could say about Spencer, and he's also less physically imposing than Malcolm is. Whereas, Spencer is a tall, young guy, but he's also rather thin. And whereas Malcolm has more of some muscle mass to him, he can be more intimidating as a physical player, where Spencer is good in the challenges, but is still he doesn't scare you. He's not an imposing figure, and you don't think of him maybe as somebody. Oh, we got to get Spencer out because he's such an immunity threat, even though he kind of is.
Yeah, agree completely. I think that he has more of an ability to be seen as an asset that anybody can use, as opposed to an asset that's going to potentially be a threat to somebody else's game, which I think Malcolm would be seen more early on as a threat, and that would have more targets placed on him.
I think this will be a fun thing to see in the comments. Give me as sort of like a sub game in this. Rank them 1, 2, 3. Spencer, Cochran, Malcolm, and put them in the order that you think. Curt, ding, marry, kill. Spencer, Cochran, or Malcolm?
Let's see. I guess you have to marry Cochran because he's got the money. He's won the game. In terms of, so ding and kill, I would have to, I guess, Malcolm's hair, ding, and sorry, Spencer, gotta kill you.
Yeah. That's Kaz, you disagree with that?
I do. I think Malcolm's the obvious ding candidate there. I think I'm going to go marry Spencer, and unfortunately kill Cochran, even though I absolutely love all three guys.
Can't go wrong there. Can't go wrong there in that ding, marry, kill. Okay, let's take a couple questions, then we got to get to number 12 here. This is from the Psycho Falcon. I'm shocked that Spencer is only at number 13. Placed him at 7. Okay, that's a Psycho Falcon for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not surprised that he. Do I think he should be on the top 20? No. Am I surprised that he's in the top 20? No. I mean, especially he blew the competition out of the water in the RHAP fan favorite player of the season poll. I mean, it was like over half of the votes cast were for him, and the remaining 48% were divided amongst all the other players. So I'm not at all surprised that he's here. Like he even made the comment, last week that if he made it to the top 20, he wouldn't necessarily himself think that he deserved to be there. So
okay, all right. He also there was some little campaigning also.
Doesn't surprise me. I think
it.
deep down he would like Curt's. I think he would admit that he doesn't belong in the top 20, at least not yet. But like I said, I do think he could get there at some point, where he actually deserves it.
Not yet.
Because he is there now.
Not yet. And again, one-time player. Let's see him when he comes back. Okay. All right. Anna J says Malcolm, Cochran, and Spencer all in a row. Conspiracy, or if Spencer is Malcolm and Cochran put together, then this makes sense. And I think it does make sense when you look at it that way. All right. Let's move ahead. Let's get to number 12 here on the list, because it is, we are about an hour and a half or so into this show. We're only at number 12, so I think we need to pick up the pace a little bit here. And so let's go to number 12 on the list, because I'm sure we're going to want to spend some time talking about the people that are in the top 10 and top 5 a bit more than we're talking about the people in the bottom 10. We want to give them their proper introduction. Okay. All right. Let's go to number 12, and Curt, take it away.
Number 12, we have a 3-time player. We have in that mix, he won one of his seasons, and relatively recent. And like, while we only maybe don't want to spend half an hour talking about him, we could easily spend 3 hours talking with him. It is Tyson Apostol.
Okay, good for Tyson.
At number 12.
There you go. All right, so another great guy here in all in a row. Here is Tyson at number 12. And so, what do you think, Kaz? Tyson at 12, overrated, underrated, or properly rated?
I'm going to go overrated here. I like Tyson a lot. I think he's got a lot of basic skills for the game in terms of people like him. He's obviously extremely athletic. Seemed to get the strategy down, but I don't know if I fully buy that he's got it down as much as we'd like to think because he won. He screwed up the final 6 pretty terribly, and Hayden just kind of out-argued him and got somebody to draw rocks instead of sticking with Tyson. That's just something that I don't think a top 12 player of all time would ever make that kind of mistake.
Let me ask you about that. Did Tyson screw that up, or did his allies screw that up?
I think Tyson screwed it up, because if he has his allies in line a little bit better, Jervis isn't going all crazy. I believe Tyson, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't Tyson the one that slipped up and said 1, 2, 3, 4?
I thought that was Jervis.
I can't remember for sure.
I don't think that you can put fault on Tyson and bump him down if his alliance mates are running a little bit rampant. I mean, if that was the case, I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but I think you would have seen some other people placing in the top 20 that potentially didn't. And I personally would actually have Tyson potentially a little bit higher, maybe breaking into the top 10, but I don't think he'd necessarily be in my top 8. I think one of the great points about Tyson is that he was in his most recent season. He was actually one of the few people who was able to play a different game. We talk about how it's hard to go out there and play a completely different game and to change kind of who you are at heart and how you would get to settle into a default way of playing Survivor. He truly did change how he played the game his 3rd time around. And I think we all saw how he was tight with Otis, prior to the merge, but then immediately, no qualms about voting him out when it came to it. And I think that he pretty much, once the Hayden bump was passed over, and he was, in the definite numbers at the final, it was a clear run for him to the end.
Do we know where Tyson placed in the 2011 poll?
25th.
25th.
I believe somewhere in the low 20s. I believe.
Are you sure you're not thinking of the first Miss Survivor ballot, Kaz?
Yeah, I might be actually, but it's somewhere in the 25 to 30 range. I believe.
No, I have the 31 for Tyson in 2000. Actually, I'm surprised that he was that high in 2011, coming off of the Survivor Heroes versus Villains debacle, where he was publicly criticized greatly over the whole thing that happened in that season. But Tyson, is somebody who I just think has a really great knack for the survivor, for the strategic part of the game that he's learned over the years. And he just comes off as such a, like his attitude makes it seem like he doesn't care that much. And I feel like that he's somebody who is also can be dominant in the challenges as well. And I think that Tyson is somebody who is just really has it all working right now.
I think Tyson is hurt a little bit by that he's sort of a stronger, more threatening Malcolm, almost to the point where he's too threatening and people want to get him out immediately, which is what we saw his first season. Also, even though he improved his strategic game the third time, and even though he won, I still think Hayden played a better game and just kind of ran bad once they got at final 6 and on from there. So I think Tyson made a lot of mistakes even though he won the game, and even though we saw progression, I don't think it's enough that I would consider him a top 12 player of all time or even a top 20 player of all time.
I think you're too hard on Tyson, Kaz.
I'm sorry, I had Hayden in my top 10 and I did not have Tyson, so...
you had Hayden in the top 10. This isn't the all-time Big Brother player poll, Kaz.
Hayden is a better player than Tyson. I'm sorry.
I don't know about that. All right. All right. Well, let's not get into that. Johnny D. Silvera says, "Are you kidding me? Tyson Apostol at 12? He was in my top 5, baby, on your poll. # shocker." How about that?
But that's top 5 Canadian, right? That's like a different conversion rate.
Is there a conversion on that?
I think there is. I think that still comes out to number 12.
Let's go to Johnson Ludo, who says, RHAP, that is completely perfect for Tyson. He played Monica the second half of the game. He deserves exactly 12. Okay, well, that's very specific.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
There you go.
Let's get a few more reactions on Tyson. And I think this is a good spot for Tyson. At least, like the previous 3 guys that we talked about. They either you can come up with somewhat of a flaw on their resume where Spencer and Malcolm, they don't have a win. Cochran sort of is a social and strategic, but is lacking in the as far as being a challenge competitor, though he did win challenges. You have to give him credit there. Tyson just seems to have all 3 of the parts of the game down, and I feel like has really gotten better with age.
I definitely think he's gotten better at the strategic part and made himself that well-rounded player. I think he certainly hits all 3 of the check marks you're talking about in your Venn diagram.
Yes. Also, Johnny D. Silvera says on Twitter, it was Jervis who counted out 1, 2, 3, 4 at tribals. Does that change your opinion, Kaz?
A little bit. I guess I remembered it incorrectly, but I still think he needs to rein in his alliance members and make sure that they're not spouting off nonsense and forcing Cirie to flip there. I don't think you're ever going to see a truly elite player lose a 4-2 advantage and end up having to draw rocks at Final 6. And I think if Tyson, 1 out of 3 times he gets the black rock or white rock or whatever the bad one is, we're not talking about him at this point.
But if Hayden ended up on the wrong side of the numbers, how is Hayden a top 10 player and Tyson is not a top 20 player?
I think Hayden positioned himself pretty much perfectly for Final 7, and then Cirie didn't take the jump that she should have.
Hey, gotta keep your alliance members in check, Kaz.
They were not alliance members, and I think Hayden eventually got to Cirie, and she realized, oh crap, he was right at Final 7. I'll go ahead and draw rocks at Final 6.
I don't know about that.
I'm a Hayden fanboy. I'm sorry.
Sexual foot pool. There you go. He says Tyson most improved. Has Tyson had the biggest jump in the rankings so far to go from 35 or what is he, 32? 31 to 12 here. Up, how many spots is that? 21?
I believe he is the first person who is not in the top 20 before and is now in the top 20, so that would make him the biggest jump.
Okay, big jump. Psycho Falcon said Tyson could be in the top 10 for his one-liners alone. How about that, Kaz? Did you consider his one-liners?
How can you not love his one-liners and everything? He's a great guy, hilarious. Certainly, I think you have to put him in the top 10 of characters of all time.
Hey, a big part of the... Oh, go ahead, Curt.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think if you compare him to the other winners who have been in the top 20 so far, so Brian and Chris and Cochran... and Tom, yes, especially Tom. I think you can go back and forth about who potentially played the better game that got him to the end and ultimately won. But in terms of most interesting character, I think that's one of the things that probably gave him a bump up and above the other players that are the other winners that are in the top 20 so far.
Okay. And you know what? You got to be a likable person to win this game. Most 90% of the time. And Tyson is just the people that play with him really enjoy spending time with him. And that's big.
There's no question he is one of the most likable people on this list and maybe in Survivor ever.
Yeah, because the first time he played with Cirie, she hated him. And the second time he played with the Cirie, she liked him. So he can turn people around.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so just Dylan Lightning says Tyson got out Cirie. He crossed the line to me. He is nowhere in my top 10. Okay, so once you get out Cirie, you lose Dylan Lightning's vote. There you go. All right. Let's move on to number 11 here in our poll, and that takes us back to Kaz here, almost halfway there in the top 20. Kaz, number 11. Who rounds out the back half of the top 20?
So coming in at number 11 is another one-timer, a man, and a winner.
Ooh.
Some say this winner has an asterisk next to his name. It is Yul Kwon, winner of Cook Islands.
Yul Kwon, okay. You'll be pretty happy when we talk about this guy. Here he is, number 11, a little bit of a dip from 2011. He was originally 8 in 2011. So, Curt, let me start with you, and let me ask you, Brian Heidik drops from, one-time winner, drops from number 10 to number 16. Tom Westman, he plays twice, but it's really best known for his game. He drops from number 9 all the way to number 18. Chris Daugherty, he comes in 13, drops to 20. Yul Kwon pretty much holds the fort from 8 to 11. What does Yul have that these other guys don't?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not entirely sure. I think the fact that you can't say that he was such a strong physical player compared to, say, Tom Westman. You can't say that he was the most likable of that group necessarily either. He seemed to be kind of almost like a slightly more likable Brian Heidik. He played his emotions very close to his vest, but he had I guess the winner that I would compare the most is Tom Westman. Very physical, very likable, played a clean and honest game. And it's interesting, as Kaz pointed out, is that many people talk about him as having an asterisk next to his name. And could he have won if he hadn't had that all-powerful idol? So I'm not entirely sure how he ended up kind of at the top of this list.
Kaz, how come Yul has an asterisk and Tony doesn't?
Well, we haven't talked about Tony yet.
Okay.
But I would say that the asterisk comes from the fact that vote that Yul got past the final 9 ended up changing the game where Penner might not have flipped. There's obviously some argument you can make there where Penner maybe could have, even without the idol, but I think that's the big reason. And it also carried Yul all the way to the final 3, so I think that's the big difference between the two.
Did Yul get a Tyler Perry bump where we've been talking so much about the God idol so much this season, and we've talked about, well, hey, it's the same idol that Yul had in Survivor Cook Islands. Kurt, was Yul more top of mind than the Brian Heidiks and Tom Westman and Chris Daughertys of the world?
I mean, it could be. I mean, you could also play it up as that it's not necessarily recency bias, but it's recency bias compared to Tom's first season, to Chris, to Brian Heidik. I mean, he played in Survivor 13, and everybody else was prior to that. That could very well be it. And I don't think, and to talk to your earlier point, I don't think you talk about Tony's idol with an asterisk because nobody knew what its powers were, and everybody knew what Yul's idol would potentially do and could potentially do. So I think that's why you don't necessarily talk about Tony's with an asterisk, because he always also had an idol that did not have an asterisk next to it.
So his multiple idols sort of took the onus off of having the Tyler Perry idol.
There you go. They cancel each other out.
Okay. Kaz, do you buy or sell Yul Kwon at number 11?
Even though people put an asterisk by him, and I agree it's there, I'm still buying. I had Yul number 6 on my list. I think he is built to play Survivor. Got all three things you're looking for. I love his demeanor, too. I think he's just very calm, cool, and collected. You put him in a situation, I think he can talk people into doing what he wants. Just one of the smartest people that's ever been on the show. I think he kind of gets the way the game works. Obviously, nobody had ever really used the idol before. I mean, people had, but not in the same way where he actually used it as a tool and realized, if I do this once, it's not very valuable. If I use this to change the game, I don't need to use it at all. I just think he's a brilliant guy made for this game. I think he, without question, should be one of the 10 best players of all time.
Need to see the top 10, but feels a little low for Yul Kwon. Let's take some reactions from you guys. This is from Johnson Ludo. One of the best one-time players. He had Becky's vote the whole time and also found the idol on Exile that no one else could. So way to go, Yul Kwon. That's from Johnson Ludo. Let's take another question. Or another comment from Yul or Lal B99. Yul was so dominant, I think he could have gone at least as far without the idol, but you have to admit he used it brilliantly. Kaz, could Yul have gotten as far and won the game without the idol that he had?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think he could have. It's so weird, though, the way it breaks down, just because you have this tight alliance of 4. No, I don't think so. But Curt? I do think he could win a lot of normal seasons.
Yeah, I don't remember that season as well as some of the other ones, but I think that the interesting point that was brought up, though, was, and I saw this in a couple of the comments, is that, you know, this is back when the idols were basically you couldn't just go out and dig in a bunch of places and try to find it. I think this was one of those instances where you know, where the clues were very definitively given to kind of like in a treasure map sort of way, and he was the first person to find the idol. So I think he used his brains in a better way than the other people on the tribe did. Interesting. One of the comments here about why somebody had voted for Yul was, and I'd be interested who said this. Yul is the reason I became a survivor. He did the unthinkable by his ability to play with integrity, intelligence, and rationality. I'll always be appreciative of all that he brings to a game that is at heart human and all too human. And so if there's someone who apparently had been on the show submitted this ballot and said that Yul's the reason that they became a survivor. So hopefully someone will come out of the woodwork and say who they were.
Okay. This is from Pab Carr. He is a great player just by the fact that he manipulated Penner with his idol. Hey, nobody manipulates me with their idol. That didn't happen. Revisionist history. Absolutely not. He was great. He was great with the idol, and you can't fault him for playing by the rules that came up. And he really did a great job with that. I think Yul it might be low at 12. This is from R. Philly. Regardless of the idol, Yul stands out as among his cast as far and away the most strategic mind. Dude never stopped thinking. That's right. Can't stop thinking on Survivor. And by the way, underrated as a very, very hot guy, Yul Kwon.
Dreamy.
Right, Curt? Right?
Absolutely dreamy.
Very dreamy guy. Also, Johnny DeSilvera says, Yul dropped. He's moving in the right direction. Overrated winner. A season full of sheep for him. Oh, no. I have to disagree with you there, Johnny, because this season has the most returnees. Like, how could you say there's a season full of sheep? Look, we've got Ozzy, one of the top 20 players. We have got Parvati, whose name I'm sure we will call during this show. She's there. We've got Penner, who's a 3-time player. We've got Dr. Candace and Billy Garcia. How about that?
Yeah, it's. I think that it's really hard to compare apples and oranges sometimes between the Survivor seasons, or it is comparing apples and oranges, and I think the point was made that it's hard to say how well he would have done without the idol, and I also think he's placed a little bit low here.
Yeah, a little bit low. Okay, let's go ahead and actually let's just catch our breath here and recap the bottom half of the top 20. Okay, here we go. At number 20, it was Chris Daugherty. Number 19, Amanda Kimmel. Number 18, Tom Westman. Number 17, Ozzy. Number 16, Heidik. Number 15, Malcolm. Number 14, Cochran. Number 13, Spencer. Number 12, Tyson. Number 11, Yul. How many winners we have here in the bottom 10 of the top 20? We got Yul, we got Tyson, we got Cochran, we got Heidik, we got Tom, Westman, and Chris. 6 winners in the bottom 10. It'll be interesting to see in the chat room, what do you think? Over or under 6 in the top 10 best players in the history of Survivor? That's the number there to beat. Over or under in the top 10. All right. As you mull about that, let me take a moment and thank our sponsor for this episode. Now, I know you guys are very health-conscious snackers. Is that not true, Curt?
Sorry, you got my nature box actually right here.
Oh, Curt!
Yeah.
Curt. I didn't know you had.
It was actually on mute because I was. It was on mute because I was crunching on some honey macadamia pretzel pops.
Oh, wow. So, Curt, and you are, this is not a paid endorsement. Curt, you are a fan of the Nature Box? I think Curt might be chewing again. And
he's chewing even more now. Yeah.
No, sorry, put it back. No, I was talking. Okay. No, I've been a subscriber for probably about 8 or 9 months, so.
Yeah.
Big fan.
All right, well, your mission this summer is to snack smarter because the enemy is that vending machine, and it's easy to just talk tough about eating right. But when you're starving and it's 3 p.m. And you get all cranky and lightheaded, the evil vending machine can seem like your only friend. But don't give in because you got to look great and feel great at these pool parties. So head on over to naturebox.com. Curt, do you have any pool parties coming up? Is that why?
Not that I know of, but maybe I'm on my way there. I'm getting there apparently.
Okay. All right. So Nature Box sends great tasting snacks right to your door, and they're great for you too. We're talking healthy, great tasting snacks like PB&J granola, pistachio power clusters, baked sweet potato fries, South Pacific plantain chips, and 100 more, all with 0 trans fat, 0 high fructose corn syrup, and nothing artificial. You can even find snacks that are gluten conscious and non-GMO, cause I know that you hate GMO more than Amanda Kimmel.
No doubt. I hate it so much I don't even know what it is, but it just sounds terrifying.
And with free shipping anywhere in the U.S., Nature Box is busting up the vending machine's monopoly on your midday hunger. And that's why you could try Nature Box right now for 50% off the first box, as we're 50% of the way through the list, by going to naturebox.com/RHAP. That's naturebox.com/RHAP. Swimsuit weather's here. Time to snack smarter. Stay full, stay strong. Go to naturebox.com/RHAP. That's naturebox.com/RHAP. And one of the things I've noticed, if you go type RHAP with lowercase letters, capitalizing them screws it up. And you could be like Curt Clark and tabulate your way to a healthier summer. All right. So number 10, let's get back into it. And let's go with the even numbers. That takes us back to Curt.
Yeah, number 10, we have a one-time player who I personally have wanted to see this person come back again and see how they do. This is a one-time player, one-time winner. Not going to draw this out too much. The winner of Survivor China, Todd Herzog.
Todd Herzog. Boom.
Boom.
All right, Todd Herzog. Actually, he slips as well. He was number 7 in our original top 10. And so let's talk about Todd at 10. Kaz, take it away.
I think this seems about right. I think Todd's a really skilled player. I love the fact that, unlike these last few guys we've talked about, he's not going to be a threat, very similar to Cochran. Nobody's ever coming after him post-merge. Just a really brilliant guy, obviously knows the game in and out, and people seem to really love him too. So I think he's got a lot of the skills that you're looking for out of a Survivor player, and I think that showed up in Survivor China, and that's why he ultimately won that season.
Yeah. Curt, any comments from people why they had Todd at 10?
Yeah. For instance, some people were saying that he's extremely underrated, socially brilliant, and basically managed to play the game well and thoroughly without pissing anyone in particular off. That he was in control of the game from day 1 through day 39, and really, lots of commentary about him being cunning and sly, but in a really positive way. Really bringing in, for instance, engendering loyalty in some of his biggest adversaries.
Now, I always feel like, Todd and Yul and a couple of these other guys that are the one-time winners that never got to come back. I sort of linked them together. Why is Todd higher than Yul? Is it because of the idol from Survivor Cook Islands?
That would be my guess.
See, whereas I would think it was a little bit more of coming out of Cook Islands versus China. I have a better feel for who Todd is as a person. He was a little bit more three-dimensional, I think, than Yul necessarily was, and that's no fault necessarily for Yul. But it's part of the editing, but it's also part of what you put out there. But I think, again, from an entertainment perspective, Todd was a little bit more of a true character on the show, and also I think a little bit more physically an underdog as well. And I think just someone that you were just trying to see, could they maneuver their way to the end, whereas Yul always seemed to have a lot under control.
Yeah, we sort of like end up in sort of like a thing where it could go either way, where it's like somebody like Yul is like, well, he wins challenges, he's a physical threat, but that gets him voted off. And Todd is somebody who's not a physical threat, so he goes further in the game because he's not. So what do you value more, somebody who's weaker and not as much of a physical threat, or somebody who is more physical? It's like the Cochran-Malcolm debate.
Yeah, it also ends up, I think, coming down to a little bit how you manage the jury at the end as well. It's like, it's not, regardless of like how I'm going to vote on this poll, I think it's just, it mirrors back to like, well, how are people on the jury actually going to vote and what are they going to value? And you need to adjust your game for that and get the jury stacked in your favor. So in terms of like, for me personally, as I'm voting, and I didn't personally vote in this poll, I place more value on somebody who can get to the end, who's not necessarily a challenge threat, who has to rely on how they can actually interact with other people to get to the end.
Okay, let's take some reaction to Todd at 10. At Johnny Fairplay says, what am I watching right now on robbinswebsite.com? Am I in the top 10? Well, again, we're talking about Todd in the top 10. You have to stay tuned to see if Johnny Fairplay is in the top 10 or outside the top 20. Amazing Race Know-It-All says, I think Todd played a really good, sneaky game with the idols and should have been way higher. Very deserving winner. Okay, so interesting. Okay, Anna J says, Todd is definitely my personal top 3. China was one of my favorite seasons, and Todd played brilliantly. Okay, so some people seem happy with Todd at 10. I'm not seeing too many people freaking out over Todd at 10. So I think that seems like a good spot for Todd.
Yeah, and like originally I was thinking to myself, I might have placed him a little bit higher, but then I think I'd need to see how he handled a second season to see where I'd actually end, if I would place him higher or not.
Is Todd ever going to play again? Cause
I would have said no until this last year, and now I think he might have a shot, probably for the wrong reasons, but I would love to see him back.
Feel good story?
I hope so. I think that kind of would be the angle they would take.
Yeah. Okay. Curt, yes or no? Gun to your head. Is Todd playing again?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. There you have
it. Gun in my head.
You better answer quick. Okay. Are you guys ready? You want to go to number 9?
Sure.
Okay. Let's go to number 9 on the all-time list. Okay. Todd drops from 7 to 10, but remains inside the top 10 list. Okay. Only 9 coveted spots left in the old top 20. Here we go. Number 9. All right. Kaz, this is 9, you, right?
Yeah. Is a 3-time player and another 3-time loser. Some would say he even maybe even twice, but probably not. The greatest player of all time, Russell Hantz, baby.
Russell Hantz, baby. Okay, there he is. Love that picture. Russell Hantz from season 19, 20, and 22. The Russell Hantz era. There you go. 3-time player at number 9. I'm sure Russell's not going to like this ranking here. Russell Hantz falls also in the list that actually, no, I'm sorry. Russell Hantz actually goes up in the all-time list. He goes up from number 11, so a climb in the rankings for Russell Hantz.
So there will be absolutely no complaining about this then.
Yes. Yes, so that he must have really hated the 2011. I wonder if the voters in 2011 held it against him that he did not come on Rob as a podcast after his season in Redemption Island. This is post Redemption Island. Maybe people were sour about how he did. So congratulations to Russell moving up on the list.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if, we've always said that if Russell wants to come back and play again, there needs to be a little bit of a gap in Hantz' presence on the show. And maybe it's the same is true with this top 20 poll, is that people have maybe calmed down a little bit since he was first on for his first 3 seasons, and this is maybe more of a true reflection of where he's placing.
Do you think that he could have gotten a RHAP bump from his recent appearance on Rob as a podcast? Does that make people say, you know what, this guy is the best player of all time?
Only if they were as drunk when they voted as he was when he was on your show.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see about that, and what Kaz, I know you must have strong feelings about Russell.
I've always been a Russell fan. I think the Russell that played Samoa is super talented and probably got a little screwed over by a bitter jury. Who is here now that we know is completely different than that guy. Said I want him in my top 20. So what I did was I ranked 1 to 19, and then I ranked the crazy Russell Hantz tier. So for me, he was essentially unrankable. I just put him on my list. I have no idea where he should be. I think Survivor Samoa Russell is a different guy than we're seeing today, and because of that, I have no clue where to put him. But I think he does belong in the top 20 somewhere.
And we see lots of the trends in the comments around Russell really revolve around how he changed the game, how he breathed life into the game. He made there be new relevancy to the hidden immunity idols. So in terms of a lasting impact on kind of a new era of Survivor, I think that's why a lot of people placed them a little higher maybe than they did back in 2011.
Russell is a tough player to rank because obviously he does have things going for him. There are things about the game that he is good at. There are also things at the game that he is very bad at. And as a player, you certainly have to say that he is flawed, and he has some flaws where there are other players who are probably lower than him on the list that probably don't have those flaws, who are more triple threats. Like, for instance, should Malcolm be higher than Russell on the list? Because Malcolm, is somebody who's a triple threat, and if he got to the end, he probably would win, but probably is not as cutthroat as Russell is. I think it's just such an interesting discussion.
So you're saying you think Russell should be lower on the list?
I don't know. I'd have to do my own list because Russell is. There are definitely I think Russell should have won Survivor Samoa. There are things that are great about what Russell does, but there's also big holes in his game. So he has such good skills in some areas, but he's so hard to rank.
Right, and I think the way that I kind of look at it is, I think this feels about right to me, to be honest. And I think, especially if you talk about him in relationship to Malcolm, Malcolm had a good game for himself. What Russell did, and I agree with some of the comments that were submitted along with the polls, was that Russell did breathe new life into the game. Malcolm didn't necessarily do that. When Russell played, there were seismic shocks about Survivor, and that got people, I think, to look at it in a new light. I think so. Malcolm as a player, very good, but I think Russell as a force for the series, potentially even better.
Okay, Kaz, how do you feel about that?
I think that's about right. I think they have completely different styles, and what I'll say about Russell is I think whatever you think of him as a player, he's the guy who I think if you could substitute in someone for yourself, if you backed yourself into the worst corner ever and you could substitute in one player to get you out of it, he's that guy for me. I think he is capable of thinking so far outside the box and coming up with these bizarre strategies. He'll berate people into doing whatever he wants. It may even cost him jury votes, but I think he is so great at positioning himself to get to the end at all costs. Sometimes that ends, or every time that ends up costing him the win. but I think those are the skills that he brings to the table, and they are certainly tremendous for television at the very least.
He certainly changed the game, and you can't take that away from him. So he's such a transformative figure in the show's history. So he's so important. But just like as a play, if we're picking somebody to win the game, if you gave me this top 20 and said, okay, put your money, it's basically like the Kentucky Derby. These 20 players are coming back. Who's your winner? I wouldn't pick him from the list. And if you gave me 10 picks, I wouldn't pick him to be the person who would win the season of these 20 players. So I just don't know, where do you take the raw ability and some of the great moments into effect, and sort of like the practical, if this person was playing again, would they win?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's really hard to, like, I appreciate what you said earlier in terms of, like, should he be lower? It's really, really hard to say. There's so much drama wrapped up around the Russell Hantz name that's, I think, bigger potentially than this top 20 poll, that it's hard to say where exactly he should be placed unless you're being very, very strict about, okay, here are the guidelines for how you're going to vote and what you're going to vote on. In terms of winningest player, obviously not top 20. In terms of most impactful in the game, potentially top 3. But for me, this feels about right, but it's really hard to argue against him being potentially placed up or down.
Okay. So let's take some reactions. This is from Johnson Ludo. Russell deserves even higher. He would have won 19 if he hadn't told people that he was a millionaire. Hashtag had it in the bag. Is that what happened? He told people he was a millionaire?
He did, but I don't think that's what ultimately changed anything. I think that jury was just never going to vote for the Galoof side was never, ever going to vote for him.
Okay. All right, so let's take some more questions or comments. Lol B99. Russell Hantz' strategy gets him to the end, but not winning the game itself. He should have won Samoa, though. Okay? This is from Michael Norris. Russell is terrible. It's not just jury management. He had the focus of Nicole during a community convention. Very irrational. Oh, there's a Nicole Cesternino reference. There you go. And this is from the Gamer Girl 2330. Russell Hantz is a terrible player. He was just a person who hogs the camera looking for idols. Okay. So there you go.
I mean, I go back to the fact that he was in a 4-8 minority and he got down to a 4-1 majority. So, he was doing something right, and I think a lot of those moves that were made because of him.
Yeah. And then a couple more. Riot Maker says Russell gets a bum rap on these lists. So, okay, hey, top 9 is nothing to shake a stick at. Jason Aarons, I don't like Hantz, Survivor, and BB alike. Okay, there you go. So the Josh Aarons doesn't like Hantz or BB. So they're hopefully talking about Big Brother and not BB Anderson. Purple Burp 285. Russell at 9, as he was in my personal top 5. So. I think that I don't think anybody has too big of a problem with Russell at 9.
I think you're kidding yourself there.
Oh, you're talking about Russell?
No, well, him too, but I think he's polarizing it. People are going to have him either very high or not at all on their list.
But I think 9 ends up being sort of the average of that. I think there's the people that think he should have been higher and people should have been lower, and it's sort of a nice average. And again, he's just such a hard person to react to. Okay, you want to go to number 8?
Sure.
Okay.
Number 8. This is another one-time player, one-time winner, and interestingly, a first appearance in the top 20 poll, which might indicate that this is huge because it's Tony Vlachos at number 8.
Congratulations to Tony here at number 8. I'm sure he's going to be thrilled to hear this.
Top 8, baby. Top 8.
Top 8, baby. So congratulations to Tony. Kaz, I saw you clapping. Are you Team TV?
I am so far Team TV. It's not even funny. Coach is my favorite entertainment person ever. And I thought there was nobody who could ever come close to him. And Tony really came extremely close for me. And it was so great to see a guy who not only is that kind of Coach Tocantins character, but is also a really good player. And I think this, for me, was the best season of Survivor ever because we had a satisfying winner who was also extremely entertaining. I don't think we'll ever have a more satisfying winner. I think Tony's great. He certainly got some flaws in his game. He acts on his emotions sometimes, which comes back to bite him, but he always seems to snake out of it. And I think I have faith in him just because he plays so hard. He's out there 24/7. I love the fact that he, at the food auction, said, screw the food. I'm here to win $1 million. I'm going to do everything I can to stop Spencer and Tasha. That's somebody who's playing the game all the time. I love Tony, huge Team TV fan. This is a great spot for him.
Okay, Curt, were there any interesting comments about Tony at number 8?
Yeah, there was somebody who commented that they personally actually would have ranked Tony higher if Trish didn't have to constantly put out his fires and save his social game. So I think there was a little bit of an acknowledgement that maybe he would have placed higher than 8 if he'd actually had that social game button down a little bit more. And that's, I think, a common thread throughout many of the comments about Tony is like acknowledging that he didn't play a flawless game, but he played a game that only he could play that got him to the end that was entertaining to watch, much like Kaz said.
Look, how could you say that I could only be number 8? If I would play the best game and I would play the most recent season, then I should be the number 1 player of all time. How about that?
It was sure. I think we'll see that. I'm personally surprised that he didn't place a little bit higher. I think given the recency bias, actually. So to me, this feels right. That's a pretty qualitative stance for the tabulator to take. It's not a hard number stance, but this feels right to the tabulator.
Okay. All right, let's get some reactions to Tony in the top 8. If we did this list, say, a year from now, do you think that Tony would be probably, at least a spot or 2 lower, or maybe not? What do you think? Would Tony fall if we did this list a year ago?
I don't think so.
I'm sorry, a year from now, I should say. Okay?
I don't think he does, actually. I think he's one of these guys who's just going to, similar to Russell Hantz, stick in our memories forever. So I don't think there's going to be anybody who says, who is that Tony guy? I don't really remember him. I think he's always going to be the focus 10 years, 20 years from now. If this show is still going, people are always going to remember Tony.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's going to have to be some an amazing winner in the next couple seasons for Tony to potentially drop. And I think we may be due for a Natalie White in one of the upcoming 2 seasons in terms of placement in this poll.
Yeah, okay. Let's take some more of your reactions. Johnson Ludo says, it's talking llama. Yeah, so there you go. So people were talking llama all the way up to number 8. There you go.
The llama bump.
The llama bump. What new players are you expecting at this point? Well, I'd rather not speculate about who we are expecting in the top 7, baby. Okay?
Expect the unexpected, right?
Expect the unexpected. Hunter says, what I learned from Tony was how to piss people off, but still get jury votes, and more importantly, how to talk llama, top 10 for sure. Interesting, we've had these parallels in the list where you have, Malcolm, Cochran, Spencer, all 3 in a row, and then Tony and Russell back-to-back. So very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, if we didn't want to spoil the list, we could have actually asked who places higher, Tony or Russell, and kind of gotten the feel for that then. But it's interesting that they are neighbors, and I believe they were separated by a few hundred votes as well. So definitely just I think a little bit outside the margin of error, but just edges Tony. Tony edges out Russell just by a bit.
Yeah. Okay. This is from okay. Then that's the comment from Hunter. All right. If there's no other comments on Tony, then we should let's keep moving. Okay. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Here we go. So this is from. Let's go to number 7 here. Now let me just touch on this because I think this is a little bit alarming that we have named 13 people in the list. Only 7 are left to go. Okay. And so we have 12 men have been named, and only 1 woman, and that woman was at number 19.
Well, what do you say we change that, Rob?
Yes.
Nice segue.
Let's change it at number 7 because number 7 is a woman. A woman that I love, I know Rob loves, somebody who played 3 times and 2 times made it very close to the end, fell just short. Cirie Fields.
Cirie, love Cirie. I love Cirie. Cirie is great. She ends up falling one spot from 2011 to 2014. That she was at number 6 in 2011 poll. So congratulations to Cirie at number 7. And I'm such a big fan of Cirie's game. I think that she's just such a natural, charming player, and I feel like I'm glad she continues to get the credit she deserves.
I'll say right now, I totally agree. I think she's a tremendous strategist, one of the best social players ever. I think she's just, like you said, a complete natural for this game. And it's so disappointing to me when I watch her old seasons because she really could have been a 2-time winner. I think if she makes a fire faster than Danielle in Panama, she probably ends up winning that season because both guys take her to the end and she beats both. Then in Micronesia, they thought it was going to be a final 3, and so Cirie would have won that had they all gone to the end together. I think she's so close to being a 2-time winner, and instead she didn't make it either time. But I think she's a tremendous player. I think she is, without question, one of the 3 best players to ever play Survivor.
Right.
Wow.
We had a there was a comment that was submitted about Cirie that was in Spanish, so I fed it into Google Translator. So let me see how well this comes out. But this is basically why somebody is in love with Cirie. Cirie fields best shots. Not only won the season because she lost a challenge, otherwise it would win a landslide of Parv and Amanda, who also made great plays but have not had a social as good as hers. So there you go.
Okay,
right there.
Rob indeed does have a planet.
Yes.
There you go. Okay. So great job to see Cirie come in this highly. Do you think we'll see Cirie play the game again, Kaz?
I do. I think there are so few women that are just, big, huge characters that haven't won the game either. So I do think they're going to invite her back at some point. She also fits, a couple demographics that they're looking for, both with being a minority and also being sort of that mother type that they really like. So I do think we'll see her again. And unfortunately, I don't think she will do well. I think she's just a natural pre-merge boot because everyone realizes she's a threat and she's not good in challenges. But I still think you're looking at somebody who probably should have been a 2-time winner. And I think she's built for this game.
Yeah. In all the rumblings of a Survivor Legends season, I hope they don't make it an all-winner season because I think that Cirie is a legend and should be back.
If she is on a legend season, I do actually think that's the one scenario where she could go deep and potentially even win.
Well, I just feel like that Cirie has a couple problems. Okay, one is that she's not great in the challenges pre-merge, so she could get targeted as somebody who is like, okay, well, if you have like a tribe where you need to win the challenges, let's say it's a small tribe, a group of 6, she could be somebody who gets targeted as somebody who could potentially hold the tribe back physically. If she gets to the merge, though, she tends to be pretty good, because she's somebody that you're not going to worry about as a threat physically, but you're not going to forget about her strategically. And I think that that's a problem where she's sort of in a boat as some other players where she can get all the way to the end, but she probably needs to win that last immunity because nobody's ever going to be dumb enough to bring her to the end. And the problem is that she's not physical enough to win the final immunity, and nobody's stupid enough to bring her to the end.
But what I will say about that, though, is
tough spot.
In Micronesia, they thought they were taking her to the end, and they voted out Natalie over her. So Parv and Amanda both thought, we are taking Cirie to the final with us. So I do think she can get taken there. She's so good at just snowing people over and completely mind-effing them and making them make stupid mistakes. So I think she's capable of getting there even without the immunity win.
Yeah.
And I think she also created a strategy that I love, which is slaughtering goats, which in Panama, rather than taking a Shane or a crazy Courtney to the end, she got them all out, so she looked like the GOAT, and I really do think if she gets to the final 3, no matter who wins immunity, she makes the final 2 and wins the game.
Okay, let's get some reaction to Cirie at number 6, or number 7, and again, only the second woman in the top 20 so far. Johnny D. Silvera says, Cirie should definitely be on the list to be brought back for the Legend season whenever that happens. Russell Hantz says it's coming. It's coming. All right, let's take another question or comment from Amazing Race Know-It-All. Love Cirie, and she deserves to win and is a sweetheart while playing an honest game. Definitely deserves to get the credit and placing where she did. Not sure if Cirie played an honest game. I don't know that. I wouldn't use those words to describe her game. A great game. Fantastic game. Shane Powers would be quick to tell you that he swore on whatever, and she broke that swear to him, and which he wasn't complaining about, but just saying that she's willing to. He called her a gangster in an Oprah suit.
She's not honest at all. She's one of the most devious players ever, in my opinion. I think that's what makes her great. Is she seems so unthreatening, but she'll knife you in the front, and she doesn't care. She's one of the most ruthless players that's ever played the game.
Yeah, she's honest about the game she plays, and she's unapologetic about it. But she's not an honest player.
Okay. This is from Bazinga-ification. Yes, Cirie is one of the best players to never win. Micronesia would have been her season to win had Amanda taken her to the end. And who can forget how she controlled the votes in Panama? That Courtney blindside was perfection. The old 3-2-1 vote off, which is on YouTube, and I think you can watch it. It's fantastic. This is from Alex G. Do you think that there will be more than 4 women this time? Is this because of better casting for them or fan reaction? Well, that's we'll be able to talk about that when the list is done, whether or not we pass the 4 women from the original list. All right, are you guys ready to talk about number 6?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I am.
Number top 6, baby.
Okay.
Who does this go back to? This is back to Curt.
Yes. A couple comments about this player. This player totally redefined the way the game is played. I truly believe this player is the best and most important player of all time. This player is my favorite. I especially liked how he dominated Redemption Island. It is Rob Cesternino.
What? Redemption Island?
Yep. So someone commented that they love Rob Cesternino because of...
Are you saying that I got Boston Rob votes? Is that what? Did people? Was this a mistaken votes? Did I get a Boston Rob bump?
Potentially. I don't think so for the most part, especially anybody who's voting on this. This could have been a joke. But yeah, somebody did comment that Rob Cesternino is my favorite. I especially like how he dominated Redemption Island.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't want to spend too much time on myself here at 6. I will tell you, even though I fell from number 5 in the previous poll. No, I think this is too high for me. If I was going to do my own top 5, baby, I would not have myself near this. I think if I was going to be fair and you gave me a truth serum, I think I'd probably, have myself in the 10 to 20 range. I think that's too high for me. I'm sure that you guys listen to the podcast, obviously, and I'm top of mind. But
you bumped yourself.
This is definitely the RHAP bump for myself. And again, thank you guys who voted for me. But again, I think too high. And maybe you were high. This is from Hunter. It says, speaking of a Survivor season, Survivor Legend season, would you compete? Again, let's cross that bridge if we get to it. I don't want to make a decision right now on the spot with that. So again, much appreciated to you guys. Let's again. I don't want to spend too much time. I know we're closing in on 3 hours here in the top 20 players of all time, Paul. So let's not spend too much time congratulating me. And are you guys okay with moving on to number 5, or is there anything you want to say on number 6?
Too low for my taste.
Too low,
still, but,
yes.
Yeah.
Obviously. Okay. Let's go to number 5 here. Okay. How about this? Number 5. This takes us back to Kaz.
So coming in at number 5 is a 2-time player, a 1-time winner, and a man who some might say created the game from scratch, Richard Hatch.
Richard Hatch, number 5. There you go. And, I'm glad to see Richard Hatch here in the top 5, baby. He falls also from number 4 last time, so he also falls 1 spot, much like I did in the polling. So Hatch at number 5. Now, Jeff Probst recently did an interview on Reddit, and one of the things he said that he felt like Richard Hatch was overrated as a Survivor strategist. Of course, Richard Hatch not in the Strategic 6. Curt, what do you make of that?
I'd have to disagree there. I think that he would do better if he came back a 3rd time. I think that he didn't know what to expect in the All-Star season that he came back for, and just wasn't necessarily prepared for that, or at least he might have even been resigned to the fact that he might have seen himself as the biggest villain who was playing, and potentially was kind of half expecting to get voted out. Only he can confirm for sure, but I think that if anything, to me, this even feels. I might have even bumped him up 1 or 2 here. I think that he didn't know what to do with the game, and you saw 2 tribes come into the merge on his original season, and one tribe immediately played the game of, okay, now it's all individual games, and he saw the value of forming an alliance. And there's not that can't be underrated. So I think it's key.
Kaz, your take on Hatch at number 5.
But like we were talking about with some other people before, this is the whole potential argument, potential versus results, where, yeah, he's won, but he's won a completely different game of Survivor than we have today. So I don't really even know how to evaluate him. It's more on what we hear on this show and other places where he does interviews. I think he's got a ton of talent for the game. He's obviously super smart. I have no doubt in my mind that, he's up to date on strategy, and he could be out there masterminding things just like he was in season 1. I think he's the guy who finds out all the angles and figures out the best way to make it to the end. I worry that the personality can be a little harsh at times. I think that's his big flaw. But other than that, he's obviously extremely skilled. I think this is a little high for him. This, to me, is similar to ranking Borneo as the best season of all time, when it's clearly not. But he's obviously a really skilled player. I think he definitely belongs in the top 15, I would say, and it wouldn't surprise me if, he goes and plays again, wins again, and now we're saying, oh crap, we were right, he should have been top 5, maybe.
Yeah, I think that the one place where Richard, I think, would struggle if he returned to the game, he doesn't suffer fools. And what I mean by that is, let's say, Richard Hatch was on a tribe with somebody who was, let's say hypothetically, was on a tribe with somebody fill in the blank, like a Brandon Hantz or somebody. And
Caleb.
So he's on a tribe with somebody who is basically talking about something that's nonsensical. And whereas somebody like a Cirie might be like, oh, really? That's interesting. Okay. Richard Hatch, I think, would probably tell that person to their face, really? You believe that? You're an idiot, So I feel like that Richard could probably use a bit of a softer touch if he was to ever play again in dealing with some of the other folks out there. But again, the guy is a genius when it comes to the strategy, no slouch when it comes to providing for the tribe, and really define the game.
Agreed.
Yeah, let's take some reaction from your comments. We have Amazing Race Know-It-All, number 5, the original Survivor manipulator. But if you think about it, it was 2000, and it was nothing like it has seen before. And it was brilliant, and he deserved the win, and he played a good game. Okay, that's I don't disagree with that. How about that? From Jeremiah, not surprised. Richard Hatch is still in the top 5 because he is basically the father of Survivor gameplay. So I think that I've not seen anybody saying that Richard Hatch is too high. I think everybody feels pretty good about that. Kaz, you seem a little bit maybe too high for Richard Hatch.
A little, but again, we're totally guessing here with a lot of it. I think he's got all the tools other than that piece where, like you said, he needs to be a little soft touch with some people, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he actually is completely deserving of this spot. We just really have no way to know.
Yeah, and he was the one person that came into the first season that really saw the game for what it was, and he saw that potential that I don't know if anybody else really understood what it was going to be like, and he defined the game.
Yeah.
Okay. One more. Riot Maker says Richard will always be top 5 as he is the godfather of Survivor. So is he the father or the godfather?
I would put him as the father. We'll see who the godfather is, but yeah, he's definitely kind of one of the original players, and I think that, at least compared to Big Brother, you kind of discount the first season of Big Brother when you're talking about who are the top players of all time, but you can't discount Borneo. I think for many of the reasons that Kaz said, and whether or not he's top 5 or top 10, I think he definitely deserves a spot as one of the top players.
Okay.
No question.
All right. let's jump ahead to number 4 here on our list. Okay. Only 4 spots are left. I think this is where it gets kind of interesting. We know some of the big names that are out there. It'll be interesting to see what gets shuffled. Of course, I would expect that there's going to be when we got to this point in the 2011 list, we had Parvati, Boston Rob, Sandro, 1, 2, 3. Now, we're at 4 here, so we have at least one other name to throw into the mix. Richard Hatch was 4 in the 2011 list. I was 5. Cirie was 6. Todd was 7. Yul was 8. Tom Westman was 9. Brian Heidik was 10. So all those names have been called tonight. So I think we have some intrigue here heading into the top 4. Curt, who is the number 4 greatest Survivor player of all time?
One voter commented that their guess is that this person will not get nearly the amount of love that they deserve in this poll. They are an incredible player, top 10 without a doubt, top 5 by this person's estimation. We are talking about Kim Spradlin.
Oh, wow. Well, good for Kim, the highest newcomer to the list. There you go, at number 4. So congratulations to Kim. And at least we have some more female representation on the list. Let's talk about the amazing Kim Spradlin. Kaz, even you have nice things to say about Kim Spradlin, right?
I want to start here, and this will be my biggest rant of the night without question. This is the most egregious mistake made by the listeners. Kim should be number 1 by 10 miles ahead of everyone else. I said when we did this 3 years ago, I thought you were the best player of all time. We hadn't seen Kim yet. She would chew you up and spit you out. She is so much better than anyone else who has ever played this game. Social, strategic. She's got more charisma in her pinky than anyone else does in their entire body. She is made for this game. She's got everything you want in a player. I think perfect age, perfect likability factor, perfect sense of intelligence, funniness. She's got this aura about her. She is, without question, the greatest player to ever play the game. It is such a shame to see her at number 4. This is absolutely wrong, in my opinion.
Okay. Curt, do you agree with Kaz? Is Kim way too low?
To me, this is right. On the one hand, this is somebody who won her first season and has only played 1 season. So it's, I think when we get into the top 10, you start to see people falling into places naturally based on where they've played multiple seasons and where they might not have had a great first season out. They've had a better second season, or maybe a better third season, or in some cases a better fourth season. But in this case, she had a great season her first time out. I don't know it wasn't the most exciting season, so I can see why people didn't necessarily place her at the top. Again, that shouldn't be a smack against her. I personally don't think that a Survivor needs to play in a way that is entertaining to the home audience. If they have $1 million on the line, there's an easy path to the win. But I still would say that there were a lot of characters on her season that weren't going to necessarily just roll over and die and give her a free walk to the end. I think about Troyzan. I think about some of the people who she was lucky left pre-merge. The group of players she was left with after the merge, I think it fell in line for her to have an easy path there. But I think it remains for me to be seen whether or not she should place higher to see how she would do in another season if she came back.
All right. Well, I'd love to get some reaction from you guys. As far as I think about Kim, I think the world of Kim. I faulted her during her season that it was boring to watch because it was she was just mowing everybody down. She was so good, and she's so charming, and really you can't, unless you're Troyzan, really to know her is to love her, and she really is just a fantastic Survivor player. And I wonder, could 4 be too low for her? I mean, she's probably hurt by the time she's only done it once, but I feel like as a new member of the Survivor Hall of Fame, I feel like got to see Kim again. We got to see Kim again. I know she has the baby. I know it's going to be hard, but I feel like we need to see a second time out of Kim, and I think she could do very well. Johnson Ludo says, where the heck is Yao Man? Credit to Kim, but she played on a season of dummies. All right, well, let's not make this about Yao Man. Let's give Kim her due. Kaz said she was robbed at number 4. Okay?
Yeah, and I think the point about the dummies, everyone always says that one world, there's no good players. Sabrina was a very good player. Kim took her to the end and beat her handily. Chelsea, probably a very good player as well, took her and beat her. Troy Zan at least was out there trying. You had some other, guys like Jonas, who I think had some skill for the game. She just completely killed everyone and made it look really, really easy. And I think that's why it seems like a dumb cast, is because she was so much better than everyone else out there, just like she would be in any cast. She would make any cast look dumb.
Okay. Let's get Johnny D. Silveira says, I'm absolutely devastated. Kim Spradlin was my number one. Hashtag recount. All right. So Johnny D. Silveira is on the same page with Kaz.
Let me quickly recount. Nope, she's still number 4.
There you go. Number 4 is nothing to sneeze at.
It's
no,
not,
yeah, exactly. This is
still too low.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think especially comparing to where any of the other one-time player, one-time winners placed, this is damn good.
Yeah. And we'll see with the top 3 as we'll get into it. But safe to say the highest one-time player on the list.
I will confirm that.
Okay. All right. All right. So then Jacob Wilson, Kim, not at number 1 is a joke. She completely dominated her season. All the skills to win any season. I just think the only thing holding her back is we've only seen her do it once. And I think the other people that we are going to talk about, we've seen them do well at least twice and sometimes even more. So I think that's the only thing. It's just the one time on her track record. Let's go to Michael J. Says, you cannot judge who Kim beat. You can't base it on that. You play against the players they give you. Good for the voters. Okay. Look. You got to play against whoever's on the field against you. That's right. All right, one more, and then let's move on to number 3. From Noah, says, Kim was dominant in challenges, came up with every strategy, and had the social ability to make her enemies love her. And the only other black spot on her record was could not win a Miss Survivor when it counted. That's the only other mark that people could be holding against her. Kaz, do you think that was a factor in the voters' minds?
I think it had to be, and I think Kim and Chelsea may have split some votes, which is unfortunate. I want to run off of Kim against RC again today.
Okay, all right. Where was the former Miss Survivor in the top? Assuming we're not going to talk about her in the top 3, in the top 424.
That's a good question. I'm seeing number 102 on the list for RC.
Hey, what about the reigning Miss Survivor?
Andrea,
assuming she's
who, by
not
the way,
in the
is a
top
terrific
3.
player.
Yes.
Andrea, big fan still. Number 36 or 37 on the list.
Hey, not bad. She's in the strategic 6 too. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So let's talk about the top 3, because here's where I think the intrigue starts to lie. Last time the list came in from the 530 some odd ballots, it was Parvati 1, Boston Rob 2, Sandra 3, but it was close. So I'm interested to see if the 12 times the voters changed this order, okay? Or if it sort of cements it that we had it right the first time. So I'm assuming, and again, it's dangerous to assume, that the top 3 will be these 3 people, but I'm interested to know if the order has changed. These are the 3 we always talk about. We talk about the Mount Rushmore of Survivor. These 3 people are on it. You could talk about who's the 4th, whether it's Richard Hatch, whether it's Russell, or whether it should be Kim Spradlin now. But let's get into it. Number 3, Kaz. Who is it?
Well, I can tell you from the vote tally that we did have a very clear top 4 with these 4. And Kim was very close with the person who came in 3rd, and then there was a large jump up to 1 and 2. So this seems like sort of the cemented spot for this person at 3. This is a 2-time player and a 2-time winner, Sandra Diaz-Twine.
Okay, Sandra, hold steady at number 3. Okay. There you go. We know Sandra's stats: 2 times played, 2 wins. Kaz, refresh my memory on your take on Sandra.
Not a fan, and I think the more I talk in this segment is going to get me in trouble, so I think this is too high.
All right, Curt, what's your take on Sandra? Curt, we have hold on, you're muted a little bit here, or a lot.
She would be my number one.
Number one. Okay, good. We have a good crossfire here.
And while I don't necessarily always maintain that the best player of the season is the one that wins, I do think that she was able to get to where she needed to be and arrange things such that she was going to end up winning, whether it was letting other people dig their own graves, amplifying the bad attributes of other players. I think 2 times played, 2 times won. In my books, for her, that's deserving of the number 1 title.
All right. So, Kaz, does that change your mind at all?
No.
No.
I just think she's been. She has won twice. I don't mean to take anything away from her. I do think she's gotten lucky both times to be in good situations where she obviously doesn't control any of the action. She is what we would call a floater. But I think she's gotten very lucky both times to get taken to the end in spots where she probably couldn't have, or it was for, people didn't have any option to vote the first time. They were voting against somebody, her or Lil. And then the second time, I felt like it was more of them voting against Parvati and Russell. So I don't think she's someone who's going to have success a lot. She's had success the 2 times she's played, but I think if you put her out there 1,000 times, she's a pre-merge boot a lot. She does a lot of emotional things like get in fights with people, throwing out the fish for no reason, kicking over a bucket because she's mad. I just think she's run very good, and I don't think this is something that would hold up if we could run this 10 million times.
All right. So, Kaz, let me just so I know that you're where you're coming from. If when you did your top 20, was Sandra in your top 20?
She was not.
No, come on.
And I know you're going to say that takes away from my credibility, but the way I look at it is, if I'm playing a Survivor, or if somebody's playing a Survivor season for my life, do I trust that Sandra will win more often than a certain amount of players? And I don't think she belongs in the top 20. She has won twice. I can't dispute that, but I would not be betting my life on Sandra winning in a normal season.
It's interesting. If you gave me sort of like the race form of, okay, all right, this is Survivor Legends. These 20 people are playing, and I get to put my money on somebody. You know what? I think that Sandra might be in the top 5 of the people that I would put my money on in this group.
So how do you handle the thing that Johnny Fairplay has confirmed, and I think Rupert has confirmed, that if that tribe goes to tribal council in any of the first 9 days or whatever, that she's the first boot? And do you not think she's the first boot in a lot of seasons like that?
And why are we assuming that Johnny Fairplay and Rupert have so much pull in this group of survivors?
That's a fair assumption, but I remember him saying that she was kind of separated from the group, and she's obviously sort of a fiery personality. I don't think that none of the other people that we're talking about this high up on the list really have that sort of fiery personality where they'll get in fights with you, and those are the things that people knock the Russell Hantzes or Johnny Fairplays of the world down for. So I just think we're looking more at results here as opposed to what would actually happen if we could do this a million times. I
just go back to it's that Moneyball thing where it's like, if you're Jonah Hill and you're sitting there and you're looking at the numbers, and I'm Billy Bean is Mark Burnett. I'm like, all right, bring me the person who's gonna who we could pay the least amount of money, who's never gonna get voted out of Survivor, and Jonah Hill's like, well, there's this person that's really sucks in challenges and fights with everybody and makes really irrational decisions, but for whatever reason, nobody ever votes her out. Like, it's like if the numbers say that she's good, there's something about her that's good. And if it was one time, I'll give it to you, it was a fluke. You could say one time, but people, and that's why I think she would do well a third time, is because people think she sucks and are going to keep her around. And I don't think that people are as threatened as they should be of her.
If you had another season looking at the last poll's top 3 of Boston Rob, Parvati, and Sandra, if you were going to have another all-star season and all 3 of those people were represented on Legends, and you're going to ask me, gun to my head, which of those 3 is going to make it furthest in the game, I would have to say Sandra.
Yeah, nobody's worried about her. Everybody.
I agree.
I think Boston Rob and Parvati have now put too much of a big target on their heads in a Legends season to be allowed to go far in the game.
I
Yeah.
agree. I think if she plays in an all-star season, she continues to go farther than those people. For me, that's not the way I evaluate this list. For me, it's if we're doing it in all forms, whether it's the three persons leading a tribe, whether we're doing fans versus favorites, a normal season, if we're combining all these things, I don't think Sandra does as well. I think she benefits heavily from an all-star season, which is partly why in these all-star seasons we've seen the less than threatening players win. I mean, we see Amber win, we see Parvati, who at the time did not seem threatening and now obviously does. We see Cochran win, who was not looked at as a big threat. So I think it takes different skill to win an all-star season, and I don't really count that. I don't weigh that as much as winning your normal season or especially your first season. And yeah, she did that too, but again, she was up against somebody who had already been voted out.
Okay, this is the most polarizing thing that we ever gets brought up on, and this is going to set. I think there'll be more comments about this than anything else that we talk about. So whether there are some people that argue to the death Sandra sucks and is a worthless player, and there's other people that argue Sandra is amazing, and these people they fight, and we'll have hundreds of comments about this. And that and Russell should have won, or Russell sucks. Those are the two hot button issues, and when those two things sort of collided in Heroes versus Villains, I think that's still the post that has the most comments in the history of RHAP as a podcast, the finale of Survivor Heroes versus Villains, which is so early on in the podcast.
If there's ever a Survivor $25 pure RHAP mid, I think that has to be one of the categories, is the Survivor hot button debates.
Yes. No, it should be Sandra versus Russell on the $25 pure RHAP mid, maybe before Survivor.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. All right, real quick. Let's just Joseph Cavato. Whether you agree or disagree with Sandra in the top three, numbers don't lie. You gotta respect the only two-time winner of Survivor, and I think there's definitely something to that. You gotta give. I know we don't want to be totally results biased, but she did it twice. She won twice.
My one argument then would be if winning twice made her such a great player, shouldn't she be number one? But the reason we're not putting her number one on this list and why it was such a blowout between the top two and her is because I think people realize even though the other two have only won once, they're probably more likely to win more often than Sandra is. I think if you had somebody like a Kim Spradlin or a Parvati or a Boston Rob win twice, there'd be no question they'd be at the top of the list.
There's a difference between is third the right place for her and not even making a top 20.
It's a fair point.
You got burned, Kaz. You got burned by the tabulator, and he's a nice man.
Yes.
He doesn't normally do that kind of thing. One more comment, and let's move on to the big question. Ian Terry, says, if Drake loses immunity challenge number 1, number 2, or number 3, she is gone. People hold that against me with Big Brother 14. I see her as actually worse. Curt, is Sandra worse than Ian Terry?
Nobody is worse than Ian Terry.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
This is why Ian is great, though.
Okay. All right. Let's get into the big debate tonight. All right. We have two people. We have Parvati and we have Boston Rob. I am assuming, and again, you get in trouble with assuming, that these are 1 and 2 or 2 and 1, and one of these people is going to be the greatest Survivor player of all time according to your votes, and the other is going to be second. Curt, could you tell us a little bit about the vote differential between the top two?
Sure.
How close was it?
It was about a 4,000 points difference, which translates into, again, obviously some quick math, about 400 first place votes. A decided victory. We'll see, 400. Yeah, this is pretty definite. If anybody had done any campaigning, might have bridge closed the gap a little bit, but it's definitely there's little question here, even after the wonky votes were eliminated or accounted for. So that having been said, shall I just jump into number 2?
Okay, yeah. Scott St. Pierre is saying that we're having problems with the screen sharing anyway. So how are you going to do this? You're going to give us number 2?
Well, I will reveal that indeed the top 2 players are alphabetical by first name, Boston with a B, Boston Rob Mariano, and Parvati Shallow. Those are our 2 top players.
All right, as we assumed.
So just so we can give it the true pomp and circumstance that it deserves. The top player, then you can figure out number 2 after this. The top player of the 2014 top 20 players of Survivor poll is Parvati Shallow.
Congratulations, Parvati. She holds her title once again. Congratulations to Parvati, and Boston Rob is 2. Was it close between 2 and 3?
It was a little bit more of a gap. I think, Kaza kind of referred. It was about a 6,500 vote gap, so a bit closer between 1 and 2, more of a gap between 2 and 3. 3 and 4 were a little closer, but 1 and 2 were the 1 and 2.
So, Kaz, how did you have this? Did you have Rob as 2 or 1? Or I guess you had Kim Spradlin as 1, but who did you have higher on your poll?
I've got Boston Rob higher. I think anywhere between 2 and 4 with you and Cirie. I think he bounces around there, and then I would have Parvati lower. I just think Boston Rob is better equipped in terms of strategic sense. I love what Probe said about him having a mathematical strategy the 4th time. That speaks to something that I think very few players understand. I think he is built to play Survivor. He is like Malcolm on steroids, basically. He's got everything you're looking for. Coming out there a 4th time when he should have the biggest target in the world on his back, he's still able to trick these kids into taking him to the end, and he's never really even close to being voted out. I just think that lends him more to being a better player than Parvati.
Curt, how do you see this, Rob versus Parvati?
See, like, on the one hand, it took Rob 4 tries to win, and Parvati seemed to have a quicker learning curve. The flip side, though, is Rob's 2nd time out, he probably should have won, and just like a little twist there, or in terms of managing personalities, he came in 2nd, but ended up marrying the winner. So this is a really tough one for me. If I have Sandra at number 1, I would probably myself have to have Boston Rob at number 2.
Okay.
And then I would have Parvati at 3.
So Parv at 1, Boston Rob at 2. I know Rob is sort of getting the short shrift here. Anything we want to talk about Rob's game in particular?
I just think what we said about Sandra doing it twice, kind of like what Curt just said. I think Rob sort of did it twice and just got into a weird situation where these big personalities refused to vote for him. But I think you fill them with true serum, they realize Boston Rob deserved to win that game. So for me, I think that that's kind of important to look at him as like a 1.5 time. Whoops.
Oh no!
I got so excited by Boston Rob.
Got so excited.
I think he's sort of like a 1.5 time winner, and I just think he's a better all-around skilled kind of player in terms of the way he looks at the game, the way he interacts with people. I just would have more faith in him if I was betting between the 2.
Yeah. I think a flip side of this is, and I'm kind of sneaking ahead a little bit, look at the comments that Scott currently has pulled up from Dylan Robinson. And Dylan's comment is that Parvati is to Survivor what Rachel Riley is to Big Brother.
But there's a lot of ways you could take that.
Yeah, that's actually true. That's actually a good point. I'm taking it in terms of a positive connotation, in that unlike Boston Rob, in terms of Parvati has really been a great ambassador for the game of Survivor as well. And so I think when I've been kind of looking at how I would have potentially voted for people, I think I would also have to factor in not just how did they play the game and get themselves to the end, but what have they done for the larger game of Survivor as a whole. So I think that Rob potentially represented all the things that Survivor stands for, but in terms of Parvati is very active in the community or with the fan base, and she's got she's active with the current seasons, and he's kind of quote unquote moved on. So maybe for some people that might be why they kind of see Parvati. She's a little bit more visible. She's a little bit more involved in the show on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Let's take a couple of more comments about this. This is from Johnson Ludo. If Rob were a hot girl, he would be so much better than Parv. He is a better strategic player than Parv. Do we want to imagine if Boston Rob, we're assuming we're talking Boston Rob, was a hot girl?
Can you do the voice, please?
Hey, I'm a hot girl now, and I'm so much better than Parvati. She's not as hot as me, because I'm the hotter girl. Okay, this is Hunter says Parvati clearly deserved to be one, and nobody had as much skill at Survivor than her, and I put her at number 1 because I had a crush on her. Okay, there you go. So not enough people had a crush on Boston Rob, I guess. Only Amber.
Only Amber.
Yeah. Okay. So there is your top 20 survivors of all time, and we're closing in on 3 hours here. So this was a real marathon, and I salute both of you gentlemen because I know it is not easy to do a 3-hour podcast, and it's not easy to do a 3-hour live podcast.
You have that right.
It's not easy to do it. All right. So and thanks to everybody who voted. Over again, 6,600 ballots were cast. We very much appreciate you guys taking your time and being so invested in how this all worked out. So thank you guys all very much on this. Of course, tomorrow night we will be back here on Rob Has a Podcast. We will be doing our Big Brother coverage live at 9:15 p.m. Eastern, and then again on Thursday. So check that out. And also, one of the things that I want to do, Curt, what do you think is going to be the turnaround time to see the full list?
Oh, we've got it right now, so I can get it to you within minutes of this ending.
Okay. All right. So we will go ahead and try to get that up on the website. One of the things I want to do is do a underrated player draft and maybe draft teams out of the top 30 as a podcast, and I hope to do that one next week. So we'll be able to do some fun things with the rankings now that we have them.
Can I volunteer one thing with the rankings that should be the steal of that underrated draft?
Yes, give me your steal, Milk Hyper.
Stephen Fishbach at 25, 20 spots too low. Stephen Fishbach, 5th best player of all time. Huge steal.
Huge steal. Okay, well, I think we're thinking outside the top 30 for the really underrated players.
Fair enough. I just want to give Stephen a shout out because I'm a big fan. So
shout out to Stephen. Anybody else notable from the list you want to shout out?
If we're going under the top 30, Adas Piskauskas at 35.
35, up from the 45 in the 2011 list.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you to everybody again who voted in the list. We really appreciate it. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of comments on this one. Make sure you subscribe to this channel to see all of our coverage coming up over the summer for Big Brother, and we're gonna try to do one Survivor podcast a week all the way through when we get to Survivor San Juan del Sur in September. So thanks so much to everybody. Thanks to Scott St. Pierre for all of the graphics behind the scenes tonight. And take care, everybody, and we will talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.